vertreten. Also da schauen wir genau, wie früher war die N2-Cup-Klasse, wo deine Lieblingsklasse, Olli, also die 240er BMWs in große Stückzahl haben. Inzwischen ist es tatsächlich die Untitled Trophy, die uns da entsprechend große Spannung besorgt. Aber wir haben noch zahlreiche andere Klassen, die uns immer wieder Freude bereiten. Nicht immer ist es für uns 1:1 leicht, jede Veränderung zu erkennen. Das liegt auch teilweise an den Mindeststandzeiten bei den Boxenstops. Das heißt, also wenn wir nach 2 Stunden eine Klasse reinschauen, haben wir unter Umständen ein versetztes Bild bei den ersten Boxenstops vielleicht länger oder bei dem anderen kürzer durchgeführt worden sind und man nachher quasi das Ganze korrigieren kann. Und das führt immer wieder zu Verschiebungen, weil es auf den ersten Blick etwas komplizierter machen können. Und das ist natürlich das Recht und Recht, die jetzt draußen auf der Strecke sind, an der Strecke sowohl hier auf der Company-Strecke als auch inzwischen auch auf der Lokschleife. Also, wir versuchen das gut wie möglich zusammenzufassen, haben heute ja 50% mehr Rennzeit dazu, vielleicht auch 50% mehr Gelegenheit, in die Klassen hineinzuschauen. Und ja, dass wir dann mal ausgerechnet beim Saison-Highlight in der Nurburgring Langstrecken wieder Zuschauer dieser Anzahl begrüßen können. Ich glaube, das ist uns einfach mal ein extra Motivationsspann.
Genau so ist es. Ich bleibe noch mal kurz bei der Cup-3-Klasse, weil wie gesagt, du hast es auch angesprochen, die Fahrerbesetzung teilweise richtig stark sind. Leute, die wir schon immer kennen in der Klasse, die vorne dabei sind, sei es Kai Diemer, sei es Arne Hoffmeister, Nico Otto, Tim Scherer sowieso, also Oskar Sandberg, einer der ganz, ganz schnellen. Also da geht es richtig zur Sache. Und Uwe, hast du mal gesehen, 983, da ist auch ein ganz prominenter Mann, kurzfristig noch mit reingekommen. Ist wahrscheinlich auch noch nicht aufgefallen, ist klar, der ist beim Blättern aufgefahren. Nicht nur das letzte Auto der Liste. Ja, der verrückt noch.
Aber im 24-Stunden-Rennen relativ früh im Bell S neben die Strecke gefeuert hat. Also, bekannter Mann, einige bekannte Männer, aber hier der Tonkornell natürlich auch in dieser Klasse zu erwähnen. Allerdings, jetzt ein kurzer organisatorischer Hinweis von den Offiziellen. Und zwar an die Gäste unten im Startgrid. Dort ist das Tragen der Hygienemaske, der Mundschutzmaske, der Mund-Nasen-Maske zwingend angezeigt. Also bitte, liebe Fans unten im Grid, auch dort muss man an der frischen Luft diese Maske tragen. Das ist eine Auflage der örtlichen Behörde. Bitte haltet euch dran, damit wir auch bei den verbleibenden Rennen die Möglichkeit haben, hier euch im Grid zu begrüßen.
Ja, gleich reden dann noch die ersten Fahrzeuge in die Stadtaufstellung kommen, dann wird sich natürlich auch ganz gleich mit den Interviews der Top-Protagonisten und der interessanten Interviewgäste melden. Die werden dann auch gleich in wenigen Augenblicken die englischen.
Der Livestream der Nurburgring Langstreckenserie, präsentiert von Falkenreifen.
Welcome to the Nurburgring for the 6th round of the NLS, the Nurburgring Langstrecken Series. It's the 6-hour race, the ADAC Pokal Rennen, and really looking forward to it. My name is Bruce Jones. I'm joined by Peter Snowden, and we start with what was a bright morning, but it's turned a little bit grey. But look, Peter, the track is dry. It's looking great.
It is, and it wasn't dry during qualifying, was it? It was still drying out, I think, has caused a few issues. I understand there's hand-cut slicks being used for qualifying, whereas it's going to be full slicks for the race. It has dried out sufficiently, but that may change, as we always say. It's a Nurburgring. Anything is possible.
Absolutely so. But just to reiterate, most races are 4 hours, but this one's a treat. It's 6 hours. And just this past week, the calendar for 2022 has been released. Not only will we have a 6-hour race, but a 12-hour race in 2022. So gird your loins, get ready for that. But right now, just concentrating on 6 hours versus 4, it is a different mix.
Oh, totally. And it sounds ridiculous, but it's 50% more. Totally different strategy. What do you do? Settle down at the beginning, keep an eye on how so much can change at the first corner. I mean, we've got 143 cars, 123 cars, which is it?
It was 140 at the start of the week, but I haven't checked just after qualifying. And qualifying was happening so quickly with the track drying.
I think it was 1, 2, 3 that actually start the race, but we'll confirm that. It's 100 and plenty, isn't it, as we say? A lot can happen at the first corner. I know there's batches, but we've got that SP9 GT3 group going into that turn 1, which is an acute hairpin, followed by almost another one back again left. So it's a real pinch point there. So all strategy can go out the window when it all changes at the first corner. With 6 hours and 30 seconds to go.
Racing drivers.
5 hours and 30 seconds to go.
Racing drivers are racing drivers. And just to reiterate, if it's the first time you're joining us to watch the Nurburgring Langstrecken Series, welcome. Peter talked there of 3 batches of cars. The field is split according to classes, and the top handful of classes will go in the first batch of cars. There's then an interval of time in the third, but of course with a circuit as long as the Nürburgring Nordschleife, there is plenty of space for them to go racing, but race they will, and time immemorial, that run down to the first corner, even though there's 6 hours of racing ahead of them, still is always an exciting moment.
What you say, that time to clear up between the batches, you say getting any contact, but in that first group of SP9 cars, the GT3 cars, you end up somebody just facing the wrong way just because they have to get out of somebody's way or something. They end up facing the wrong way. The pressure on it's that we're out of position now, depending on where they were, but all of a sudden you're facing the wrong way, and you are immediately thinking, or they were immediately thinking of, get it pointed the right way, don't stall it, but there's going to be another bunch of traffic coming through in a minute, and you don't want to be sitting there looking at traffic, not facing it. Not ideal, anyway. Not on the first corner.
Preferably not. But
preferably not at any point, really.
Now, qualifying was in glorious conditions this morning. Fabulous view out over the Eiffel Forest, but the track was a little bit greasy. Look, as the cars left the pit lane, you can see a damp line, and looking there at the number 9 Mercedes from Get Speed kicking up the spray, but it gradually started to dry up, which gave the drivers already a short enough qualifying session a bit of a conundrum of what to do in terms of tyres. Fricadelli Racing, good to see them pressing on in qualifying. Klaus Abelin, Felipe Fernandez-Laza and Julian Andlauer joining that squad for the first time this weekend. But the track did dry out. The KTMs, there's 930 pressing on well, but unfortunately the back wing on that has come a little bit loose and hanging down. But 911 definitely one of the favourites this weekend. Bantar Racing, Michael Christensen, Kevin Estra and Lars Kern. They've won before. They may well win again. Everybody, a little bit of a wing mirror moment there for the 482 BMW. The 741 BMW facing the wrong way up against the wall. So problems were found on that greasy track. Slow zones did occur. The 9-speed Audi just having to bide its time. And why? Because we had a tyre carcass sitting just in the middle of the track on that rush down to the first corner. Now, talking of rushes, look at this group of cars. 3 of them super close together. This isn't the race, this is qualifying. Trying to go 3 abreast down the start-finish straight. There's a cone in the middle of the track. That gets knocked back just as the 911 Manthey Racing Porsche is minding its own business, turning into the pit. So fast and furious. But all along, the track was drying. It was about not getting obstructed by traffic if you're in one of the quicker cars. Maurice Krantz doing a really, really good job in the number 9 Mercedes. At this point, the conditions look fabulous, riding along the long straight back towards the pits. But the car that would go on to get pole position is the number 4 Falcon Motorsport Porsche, right in the middle of the traffic. And there was a traffic jam of about 8 cars had to be got out of the way. But for Seo Picariello, he found his way through, crossed the line, took the fastest time for Falcon Motorsports, and they've got 2 Porsches in the race. He's sharing with Martin Ragginger, and Dennis Olsen is sharing the sister car with Tobias Muller. But it was a job really well done. So the vagaries of the circuit, the vagaries of the weather, but at the end of the day, Ragginger and Picariello on pole by nearly 1.4 seconds from the sister car from Falcon Motorsport. And the number 24 Audi from Lion Speed by Car Collection up in third position. They'll be very, very pleased with that. And then the Janine Schaffner, Moritz Krantz Mercedes, we saw that, the number 9, the black and white Mercedes, fourth fastest. Quite a spread of time, much more than normal. Yes, it's a very long circuit, but I think it really was a case of getting things, not making mistakes on a slippery surface this morning. Harper, Hess and Verhagen, the BMW Junior team trio, they've got 2 wins out of the 5 races held so far, sitting very pretty in the championship, but another good run from them. So great mix of cars, Porsche, Audi, Mercedes, BMW, Porsche at the top, and a Ferrari if you're a fan of the prancing horse in 8th place overall. That was Jochen Krumbach and the 2 vices, Leo and Jorg. And certainly some quick drivers further down the order. 10th place for the Walkenhorst Motorsport crew. Christian Cronjes, David Pittard and Ben Tuck. Expect them to go forward. And in fact, they were the winners last time out. So plenty to fight for. But more than that, Peter, we have 6 hours of racing for this all to be sorted out. Now, I do suggest the grid is a little bit scrambled at the top because of A, traffic, but actually no, B, traffic. A, quite simply, those mixed conditions at the start. Who dared to put what tyres on their car? It was a big question.
Totally, and the big thing is things like the debut finally now of the new BMW, the M4 GT version, of course the SBX class, which sees it languishing down in 17th place. That was actually running second at one point with Enger at the wheel. But I understand, for courtesy of Dan Harper, who gave us a bit of intel on that, that the reason it dropped down the order was that they didn't take the risk with the new car, having had that instance in qualifying when it was supposed to come out in round 4 or 5, thereabouts, whichever one it was. I know that's probably not exactly accurate, but they had an incident in qualifying, so it got withdrawn. They've got it up there. They knew it had got the pace for the race. That's the important bit. Rather than risk it in qualifying, they didn't take the risk of putting it onto a hand-cut slick to get it further up the order. It can start 17th. It doesn't matter. They know it's got the pace. So that's why that car's down there. Because initially I saw it and thought, it's 17th, and this is the new car. This costs how many gazillions of euros, and it's in 17th. That's why. And it's all down to tyres, which will ever be the case here.
Yeah, ever the case, but I think particularly when we had the changing conditions, it was a question of who put on what tyres. It will be starting 17th, not starting in SP9, it starts in SPX, which is the experimental class, but next year, of course, it becomes racing, it will be in SP9, but do expect, the order book has been very, very filled very, very quickly for the BMW M4. People have been waiting to see how the replacement for the M6 would be. It seems smaller, it seems nimbler, not yet faster.
It's an interesting choice of platform going for the M4, having gone from the M6 had a massive footprint as a road car, never mind as a GT3 car. Starting groups, Bruce, we mentioned that we've got 3 starting groups, red, yellow and black, the German flag, naturally. And it is 143 cars in total, 43 cars in the first group, which contains the SP4, T7, 8T, 9, 10, SPX, SP Pro and ATG group, the highest number in there being the SP9, 19 entries in that. Second group is 53 cars with SP3T, 456 VT, the TCR, the Cup 3 and the all-important Cup X, which I don't think we mentioned enough. But Cup 3, 20 cars, highest number in that one. And our final starting group of 47 cars has V5, V4, V6, Cup 5 and the BMW M240i group, highest number being in there. 12 entries in the V4 group. So that's how the starting order is. That's how they're all split out.
Well, now, if you just heard Peter there going through the various classes, if you've never watched an NLS race before, you might be going, good grief, how many classes are there?
Oh, that's why I mentioned it, to test you on the classes. Sorry, I thought you knew the structure. Sorry.
Crikey, this early. I was just enjoying the fact that one of the BMWs pulling up onto the grid was sponsored by a nightclub. It feels like going back to the 1960s. That's the Pasha nightclub in Cologne. But, you used to gather money from wherever you
could. Driving it, has it? I know he's doing the safety car for British touring cars, isn't he?
Yeah, otherwise very busy. The pit lane is very busy. Some of the cars going down can't even find their way down the fast lane in the pits to go around the short loop. They don't do the full Nordschleife before they come up and form on the grid. But great to have it. And just looking at the weather, I'm always on weather watch for the Nordschleife races. We did start with a damp track. It went to glorious sunshine. Now it's drifted back to being rather grey. But, first sight this morning of the number 55, the BMW M4 GT3 we've just been talking about. Running in black and white with, of course, the 2 shades of blue and red, those regular stripes that we've had for BMW Motorsport for time and a day. Looks rather absolutely fantastic. And I actually think you put that car in full black, it would be full sinister, almost Batmobile.
Well, it's unmistakable. That's I'm going to say it's almost like a Ford Edsel grille, isn't it? I'm sure the money people at BMW won't like me saying that. But going back to classes, next weekend's 1,000 Ks here. 85 classes. You'll get your head around that before you've got 6 hours, Bruce. It's fine.
There's a pause. That was just flabbergasted. But there is a class for everyone. And what does get lost often when you're looking at these 140 plus cars going out racing is simply that a lot of the people, they're just trying to fight for their class honours. That's how they score points. And over the history of the VLN, as it used to be called, is that some people will win the championship and you won't have even really seen them anywhere near the front of the grid. They're possibly running down towards in the bottom third of the field, but they're in the class with the largest number of cars. And if you score more points if you win in a class that has 18 cars than you do if you start in a class and win that has 2 or 3. Now BMWs, depends how you like them. Peter's going for the one on the left, one presumes, and that is absolutely the epitome of full-on racing car versus a production BMW. And the day that those production class cars aren't in the Nurburgring Langstrecken series, it's not the NLS anymore. It is about the absolute array and range and spectrum of cars. But I mean, that was an absolutely stark example.
Evolution and variety side by side. It's exactly what you need. And we had this last weekend in the Barcelona race, didn't we? The 24-hour race with the debut of the new Audi Evo, R8 Evo, to the again running in SBX category, so it's not homologated yet. And we were looking at I think we called it Winggate actually, because Mr. Hindhoff was talking a great deal about the differences in the wings of these cars and move further forward and reverse swan neck. And we can see it on the M4. The first time out for this car, first time it's actually taken the grid. It's qualified before, got into testing, didn't it? Didn't get to qualifying in its first attempt to debut, but completely evolved. And you think the M6 is right up there, and the junior team Dan Harper starting that car in the number 44, I think it is, right up there. But it suddenly makes the M6 look slightly dated, which sounds ridiculous. And it's still a contemporary car. It's still winning, and I would still say it's up there I wouldn't bet against a junior team driven M6 this weekend, but the new car, it just visually totally different, and it's you can't imagine it how much it's changed. That grille, the bodywork, aerodynamics, the rear wing, it's just gone on another level all of a sudden. It's
like comparing a standard family dog, a very attractive one in the BMW M6, to a snarling pit bull. To get, it's full aggression and intent with the shape of the M4. I'm not sure everybody loves it in the flesh, but in its racing form, it looks magnificent. But I've always been a fan of the M6. I like the fact in SP9 class, or GT3 as we call it globally, that you can have cars of such different shapes. And I like the fact there was a larger model, a bit like having the Bentley Continental. They sort of stood out against the Ferrari 488s and the little Audi R8s. And long may GT racing have that variety of shape. Balance the performance by all means, and that's what makes the racing so good. But the variety is really something that I've always relished in all forms of racing.
I absolutely agree, and I think one of the things I'm going to say I'm old school. You'll probably just say I'm old, and you'd be right on both accounts. But there's still something about a front-engined, rear-wheel drive GT car. Make it be winged and develop it, and they've got sequential gearboxes and paddle shifts and all sorts now, which is extraordinary the way the technology's come on. You look at a steering wheel on a modern GT car, I mean, even to the point of a fact, back to that M4, I'd forgotten that the steering wheel can be taken straight off that and put onto the simulator. The wheel from the race car can be transferred across and used on the BMW simulator. That's how things are. But it's in its DNA. It's a front-engine, rear-wheel drive GT behemoth, and what a fabulous car to drive. I bet it sounds glorious too.
And sound is such an important thing. It is so visceral, and it's whenever I go for the first time in the season to a circuit, it's the thing that strikes me. It's not the speed of the cars, even though that does impress me. It's just that noise, and you realize, I've missed this.
I remember standing in a paddock with our colleague Joe Bradley years ago, 20-odd years ago, when exactly that, the first bit of qualifying started. I've forgotten what cars it was going around, and he put his hand on my shoulder and he just went, "Snowy, we're home." And I thought, yeah, that's it.
I was going to say sad but true, not sad at all. It's
no,
glorious.
Not at all. No,
glorious and true. But it is that thing, and sometimes even if I hadn't got into the circuit before the first practice session had started, I'd almost accelerate over the bridge to get out of my car to get onto the banking. But that's why we work in this sport. And
you can put the windows down on the way in while you're queuing, You can hear the sound that way.
Don't have any windows.
Oh, okay. Oh, convertible. Okay.
So the field starts to form up in formation. I could very quickly give you a little glance down the grid. The front row will be all aquamarine because it's Falcon Motorsports, Porsche's first and second. got an Audi, number 24, in third on the grid. That's the good run there by probably Matteo Drudi, one would feel, in that car, sharing with Patrick Kolb and Lorenzo Rocco di Toropadula. That's the Lion Speed by Car Collection Motorsport Audi. Got it in early. That's made Peter
we are going to make a tally of that.
Swivel in his chair. And then fourth car on the grid, car number 9, Get Speed. That was Moritz Krantz sharing with Janine Schaffner, so good to have that Mercedes right up in the mix. But for Falken Motorsport, they have supported the VLN, as it was before, now the NLS, with such passion over the decades. And looks today as though they're enjoying the rewards, at least on the run down to the first corner, maybe out as well. But that remains to be seen. It's certainly not a given. But to me, looking down on the grid, seeing the fans there down, mixing around the cars, it's just so good to see, because obviously we had to fight through 2020 to keep racing on the rails. And again, it's just great for the public to be back close to what they love, and for the drivers and for the teams, it really is special, Snowy, to have people watching. It really makes a difference. It's, racing for all these people with no one on the banking, it just has removed a lot of colour that really just is part of the mix, and it really felt like something was missing. Well, it certainly was missing.
Yeah, I think all credit to the organisers and everybody involved in the teams to carry on racing the way we did. And I think, if anything, I think we said it before, Bruce, that NLS, the organised ADAC, each group that organises it, did really set the template for us last year of how to go racing again. It was the first big international event. We had the what we used to call it the supermarket shopping mall refueling situation, which was great, all part of the COVID. Some of the cars that couldn't turn in through the garages, cars like the Glickenhaus without enough steering lock, etc.
Well, let's just explain what that was, though, because the drivers would come into pit lane, that's as per normal, but then they'd have to turn right under the pit building, not normal, run through a loop through the paddock, down the entire length of the paddock, and then back through the neighbouring garage, so in through garage 1, out through garage 2. Some would do their refueling in the back loop, and others, so they could have the distancing.
That was the point, wasn't it, the social distancing? So some would have the car serviced at the back and then restart again. So the pit stop was actually in the paddock, then come back into the pit lane for the refueling to keep the teams separately. But they did set the template, and we coped admirably. We accepted it. And it's one of those strange things, Bruce. I don't know whether you agree. I think you probably will. But there were no people, but we got on with it. It was a new world order. It was brave. We got on with it, and it happened. And this series set us the template how to do that. But seeing people on the grid now, people in grandstands, for everybody involved, it's that buzz, it's that atmosphere. It's not just the racing, it's the whole part of it. It's a small community, it's a family. Lots of these people, certainly in the amateur drivers and pro-am setups and whatever, this is where they get their kicks. This is where their networking is. This is where it's a little family they go to at the weekend and go racing with. And it's great to see people out there again, not just the cars, but that's the vital part. But it's all part of it. It's intrinsic. I can't wait for when we get things like the 24-hour again, and we have all the sort of barbecues and things and fireworks and whatever going on, fire pits going on in the woods throughout the night, which we've missed enormously. It's just great to see people back out there again.
It is, and just looking at gaggles of mechanics around the car, you realise they've got a lot of banter, and some of them, their mates might be working in a different team now. They see each other, but for the public, and that's been the thing. I saw it for the first time with the Goodwood Festival of Speed, which was a trial event in the UK, one of the trial events that had a crowd, and seeing families, and you suddenly realise if someone's taking around a couple of children who are 8 and 6 years old, they haven't done anything like that for a couple of years. So big day out, and seeing that smile back on the face, it's really good. It doesn't matter what the event is, just going to an event, doing something special. But for the Nurburgring Langstrecken series, this is serious business to an extent. It is still a social event for a lot of the drivers competing. Some of them, if you're starting in a Renault Clio, you're not going to win outright, but you may win your class. But you're going to be racing with people you've possibly raced against for 4 or 5 years, really enjoy their company. You're in it for, as they say on the Emerald Isle, for the crack.
I mean, the vast majority of us are social animals. There are exceptions, of course, but we like to mix and we like to get out there, and it's just fabulous. I'm just looking down the order. Just noticing some of the start drivers. We've got in P1, we've got Martin Raginger in the Falken Motorsports Porsche in second place. As the other Falken car was Dennis Olsen. That should be interesting. They've got to keep out of the other's way at the start, haven't they? P3, we've got Matteo Drudi in the Lion Speed Car Collection Audi. P4, second row, is Moritz Krantz in the Get Speed Mercedes. P5, we've got young Daniel Harper in the BMW Junior team, the M6 we've just been talking about. P6, always somebody to watch at the start of a race or the opening session. The Manthey Porsche, very, very successful. And it's that pass on the grass, Kevin Estre, at the wheel of that at the start of the race. Now, we've seen it before, haven't we? I say pass on the grass, and you're smiling, Bruce, and the reason is because we've witnessed it before, and he doesn't do it at slow parts of the circuit and use a little bit of curb. I'm talking Dottingerhohe, the fastest part of the circuit, with a long run, which drops down and rises again up to Tiergarten. And as he approaches that, he puts two wheels on the grass because they haven't left him enough room to go on the right, and he says, well, we'll have two wheels on the grass and keep through and take the lead. Of course, having built him up now and painted the picture, he won't do it.
No, but we've seen him do it time and again, going up the Kemmel Straight at Spa-Francorchamps, wheels on the grass. But the thing that always is in my mind with Kevin Estre, a lot of drivers, you think they're going to line up this move, he's done it. He doesn't wait for a second opportunity. He's coming through. He's an arch overtaker, but they're not starting at the very sharp end of the grid, so they've got to do some passing. But again, maybe some of the heroes today will be the team weather people. Seo Picariello, big on your screen. Massive fan of this driver, and he's come back to Europe, having raced in Asia for several years, and has just been the go-to guy. He took pole this morning, and when we looked at the highlights, he really had to weave that number 4 Falken Motorsport Porsche through the order. Dennis Olsen, Norwegian racer, his biggest win was the FIA Nations Cup down a few years ago at Kyalami. Still waiting to find out if the 9 hours is on later this year or if it'll have to move somewhere else, but that was an epic win. He's been a real star for Porsche over the last handful of years. Now going across, that was the all Falken front row. Then we go to line speed by Car Collection Motorsport. Matteo Drudi, Snowy just mentioned, will be kicking off in that one. And there's the Italian. Again, a really, really tough little racing driver. Second generation racer. His father was fantastic behind the wheel, but Matteo, I'd suggest, has reached an even higher level.
Interesting strategy there, though, of course, that you've just mentioned. Alessio Picariello in the Falken Porsche P1, but not starting the car.
Well, now, okay, that's a point we should mention. Quite a few of these cars are running with only 2 drivers. You'd have thought for a 6-hour race they'd have brought a third one in. The vast majority are 3, and some of the cars further back have got 4 drivers. But the 2 cars from Falken Motorsport are just 2 driver lineups. The Get Speed Mercedes, that's the driver getting on board, which would be Moritz Krantz, sharing with Janine Schaffner. They are a 2-car crew. Dan Harper just about to put his helmet on. He's one of 3, a really strong trio with Max Hess and Neil Verhagen. 2 wins out of the 5 races so far this year. So
in the aging, outgoing M6. 2 wins this year. Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Got to win while it still works, hey?
Yeah. If it ain't broke, that's the theory. Don't fix it.
Now, here's the car that, they're very handily. It's in the brightest livery of the lot. It's the Grello, as it's called, the green and yellow livery of Manthey Racing. So much success for them over the years on the Nordschleife. And that's the car with Kevin Estre. Another one easy to pick out. Number 6, HRT Mercedes. Hout Racing team with the Bilstein livery. Bright yellow and blue. Not quite as bright as the other, but Hubert Hout, 2 wins in this particular race. The Ruhr Pokalrennen, he won it in 2015 and 2018. Manuel Metzger sharing that one in 2018, and Patrick Assenheimer won it 2019. So they know what it takes to win this race. Now, you might say, Snowy, well, different clubs organise each of these races, but it's still an NLS race on one particular circuit. Correct. But, I love the history of all of these different combinations. The different crews, the stories of each of these different clubs that organise the races, and some of them have been doing it for a very, very long time indeed.
Well, yes, I mean, this is, what number is this one? The
62nd.
62nd?
Something.
Yeah, in the 60th. It's quite extraordinary. You said tons and tons of history there, and great that it's a format that works, isn't it? It's overseen by ADAC, and it's obvious that there's a set of rules, there's a template, there's a foundation, but each club gets to have their almost like moment. I was going to say 15 minutes of fame, but it's actually 6 hours of fame, or 2 days and with qualifying. But you wouldn't know. But that's the part of it. I mean, again, another reason to be on site, because each club, each organising authority, will have their own way of doing a little bit. They have their own little bit of history, their own little stuff they'll bring to it, a backstory, and just fabulous that they do that.
Well, I think it's great because if you have next year, we're going to have 8 rounds of the championship. If you had 8 that had they were just rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's all grand, but it's far better if you can go, gosh, I actually won the Ruhr Pokalrennen. Oh, look who won that in 52 or whatever.
And our next one is your favourite one, the Barbarossa prize, the Redbeard prize.
Yes, but it's rather gone. The beard's gone and the red's...
I wasn't going to do the obvious connection. I wasn't going to generalise or stereotype. But.
Now, a couple of cars look as though they're going to be starting from pit lane. This always happens. You have a little mechanical problem. You get to head out after your batch of cars has hurtled down towards the first corner. So a few people will be playing catch-up. But then again, if you're going to play catch-up, do it in the 6-hour race rather than the 4. You've got a couple more hours to try and work your way back into the pack. But then again, if you're in a class of cars, you come out behind them, but you're quicker than half of them, you've got some overtaking to do. But it's a question of how you manage to do it, whether you are obstructed. But right now, it's getting a bit brighter at the Nurburgring. So maybe those clouds will roll away. It'd be lovely to have a sort of early autumnal blast around the Nordschleife. I can't think of anything better. Yes, now there's much more light as people start to clear the grid. We get to see the cars in all their beauty. It looks as though at least 3 cars will be starting from the pit lane.
One of those looks like the KTM.
Absolutely. You can see the clamshell roof.
The giveaway?
The giveaway, yep. So, long distance racing. Club racing with an international feel at the front end. I mean, that's always been the story of the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And for the NLS, they've kept it very, very sweet indeed. And how good is it? 143 cars coming out to play. Looks so we've got 3 groups of cars taking the first 140 and 3 at least from pit lane. We will see. But as the grid is cleared, the bright aquamarine nose, at least of Dennis Olsen's Porsche, now visible on the right-hand side of the circuit. The sky, not uniformly blue, but the clouds seem to have rolled away, so that's very good news. And the track seems to be fully dry. It was damp when they went out, certainly off the racing line at the start of qualifying. But by being brave, by reading the traffic very well indeed, and being quick, Seo Picariello put that number 4 Porsche onto pole position. But right now, it looks like they're taking the sort of inflatable gantry that sits above the pole starting car is about to be removed. It's a very big awning stretched across the top, so it's going to be carried away by the fans actually, but that will then lead us to having a clear grid ready for a start at the top of the hour, midday in Nürburgring time. 6 hours racing await us.
The KTM that started in the pit lane is the 3 Teichmann KTM entries. One is a GTX category, that's the 920 car, but it's the 927 GT4 entry of Stefan Brodmarket, Karl-Heinz Teichmann himself, Michael Munch and Tamino Bergmeier that are starting from the pit lane. Not sure who's starting in that car, but that's the one that's starting in the pit lane. Therefore, we can deduce that the 930, the other Teichmann GT4 entry, is out on track. I say there's 3 entries, 2 GT4s and 1 GTX that will in the Cup X class. And they will be in batch. Now, it's interesting. Where do they start? Presume they start just behind their batch, and they're in batch 2, aren't they?
I think they're batch 2. They're certainly not in the production class batch. That would be a tad unfair, one feels.
I can confirm that by the wonders of modern technology. The technology is perfectly updated. It's just that I'm a bit slow recording it.
Oh, very good. I thought there was going to be a snap answer. I was very impressed. There I am with my desk covered with bits of paper.
I'm flattered to deceive.
So there we have a clear shot down the grid. The 2 Falcon Motorsport Porsches on the front row. Number 4 ahead of number 3. The Lion Speed by Car Collection Motorsport Audi. Number 24 up by pit wall and alongside the Get Speed Mercedes, the black and white number 9. And Peter Schmidt of Car Collection Motorsports enjoying his racing so much he's actually competing this weekend. He's been a big supporter of this championship, a big supporter of the 24H series over the past half decade and more. And Car Collection Motorsport just seems to go from strength to strength. So good to see Peter out this weekend.
And I can confirm that the KTMs are starting in batch 2 from the pit lane in the Cup X category. That is the last, those are the last cars of the batch 2, and they are the only 3 cars in that category. 1 GTX and 2 GT4 cars.
So as hard as they fight in this race, the winner of the class won't take a whole scoop of points, but someone competing in one of the better supported classes could very, very well take a whole lot more by finishing 10th in their class. It's just how it goes. But you race to your class, and then if you're at the front end, you race to see if you can win outright. And so far this year, we've had victory for Mercedes in the second round. The first round, of course, didn't get to happen because snow fell, which wasn't terribly helpful.
Well, we
arrived, and
we were here,
and then were sent home. So it was victory for Mercedes in the opening round. Porsche in the first round. What am I talking about? Then Porsche in the second round. That was Bamber and Jaminet. Then Harper, Esser and Verhagen. 2 rounds to them, rounds 4 and 5. And last time out, it was the BMW of Cronjes, Pittard and Tuck. So for one trio looking to make a second win, I'd sort of look out for the 911 that won the first round. Christensen, Estra and Kern for Manti Racing. They're starting not too far back. Doesn't matter. It's starting down in 6th position. That's absolutely attainable. And if it's Kevin Estra, maybe by the first corner.
Give it a go. If the opportunity is there, he will take it. The grid's starting to clear, and you're absolutely right. Your point about the V4 category cars, which are in the final group, that 47 cars on the final batch to go, black category, as it were. They're being red, yellow, and black groups, as in 3 stripes with the German flag, only appropriate. But they are the last group. But that's where the championship winning car is. That's where the number 1 Adrenaline Motorsport car starts, and they're all BMW 325. No, there's the 390 in there as well, the number 407 car, but the mostly 325Is, and that's where the championship winning car comes from, right down in the 3rd category. So we focus enormously and logically, because they're the front of the quickest cars, the SP9, GT3 cars, but it's that the winning car, the championship winning car overall, comes from the last batch to start, Cup 4.
Yep, so we will look out through the course of race, and of course with an extra couple of hours of racing today, we've got more chance to look down through the less powerful, the less developed categories and see how their battles are unfolding. But of course the action at the front is always fast and furious. We will come to one point which I always like to throw across to Peter, which is the length of pit stops, and they have a role to play, but we don't need to worry about that. With actually slight a sort of glowering sky, it's bright, but it's a dark cloud hanging over the circuit as well.
Can we save that for the last hour? It seems more appropriate then.
We might bring it in at the end of the first hour, I feel.
Because mix it up.
Because it's not just the last pit stop that that has an important timing. It's also the first one as well. It's according to, well, we'll get to that later. But right now, fabulous array of cars. It's bright in the arena section of the circuit. We haven't had the cameras out on the Nordschleife for a bit, and we won't until the first racing lap, because these cars being led around by the Porsche pace car, if you will only be coming around to take their start from the grid. They're not going the whole way around the circuit because, frankly, at this pace, they wouldn't get round in time to start the race.
And of course, another new for this, not only we've mentioned the BMW M4 that's starting, of course we have a new corner name for this weekend for the first time ever. The end of the arena section you've just highlighted, Bruce, they're going on to the fabled Nordschleife, that oblique hairpin left, is now renamed for, as of this weekend, the Sabine Schmitz curve.
Yeah, Sabine, such an absolute star across the years on the Nurburgring Nordschleife. Famed first as a brilliant driver on that, and then latterly for being a top gear, very entertaining, much loved individual who died early this year. And great to see Picariello racing team there, number 30 Porsche, just outside the top 10, red and white, back out. Klaus Abelin, her partner, showing that this weekend. Missed a race, but fitting tribute. And it's such a tricky corner. You talk about it's a hairpin. It's effectively a double apex hairpin. About the narrowest part of the track, with a wall on either side as it goes over the bridge before you drop onto the Nordschleife. And we have seen, you talked earlier about people facing the traffic. We have seen cars sitting there facing the traffic. People spin going in, and then they can't be seen until the rest of the cars come around the corner. It's a horrible place.
Just about thinking about it. It's also uphill and very, very bumpy, because it almost signifies the start of the Nordschleife. There's that transition from. I've said this many a time, and I'm not sure I can convey it well enough. But the arena section is a modern Grand Prix circuit. The Nordschleife isn't.
Well, the images showing the cars as the second batch of cars that are led around. Sorry, I've just got to contradict myself. They do go around the full Nordschleife on this lap, and we've just seen, just as the cameras cut away from the first batch of cars, they were turning into Sabine Schmitz, and as you said, from wide to narrow. Last night I was looking at some competition from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. When you get on the infield, it's just so much space. The track almost gets lost, as it was considered here in 1984, when this part, the modern part of the circuit, was opened. Suddenly the balls were right back. But we're all set for the 6 hours coming up very, very soon, starting at the top of the hour. So conditions very, very good indeed. Second batch of cars, bright sunshine at this point on the circuit. Would love to see what's happening out at the far end, places like Bergwerk, because from the vantage point of the first corner, looking back across the top of the Eiffel Forest, it's certainly very dark over at the far part of the circuit, Adenauer Bridge and other parts. Maybe that's deceptive, maybe the clouds are high enough. But as is often the guide point, if from the start straight you can see the castle over Nurburg village, then things are going to be okay, at least for the next 15 minutes.
Yes, an interesting point you just said about going on to two things about the Nordschleife, that pinch point, the now Sabine Schmitz curve. It is a great focuser, if you like, of suddenly changing from the arena to. So it's a very good way of. It's a real marker of changing from the modern circuit to the old. It's like you've got to concentrate now. You can't get this wrong. So we've seen cars facing the wrong way. We've seen cars beat. So we've even had a couple of breakdown there's of all the places to break down. The narrowest, slowest. But as you quite rightly said, the operative word being unsighted. You're slightly round the corner. And you're coming through in a GT car and GT3 car, and there's a car stationary. It doesn't matter what size or what class the car is there. If it's stationary, it's not helpful.
It's certainly not helpful. But it's a massive reminder for those who hadn't thought that far ahead. Oh, I'm getting onto the little tricky bits.
Another
then
point.
Suddenly you've got Hassenbach and beyond just coming at you quick and fast and corner after corner after corner.
It's that we say, don't we, time and time again about this: recalibrate, absorb, reset. What the driver's got to take in all the time. The other thing I'm just thinking of, just moving through in my head, Bruce, is we have a curfew on this race at 6:05, and we've got they're out on the north side taking a very, very long lap round. I'm wondering if they need to pick up the pace a little bit on the SP3 cars.
Well, there is a question
because it's a 6-hour race, not a 4-hour race.
Yeah.
They just seem quite slow.
Maybe we'll end it a quarter of an hour early, so we've got enough time for all the drivers to get round to the end.
Podium.
For the podium before. Yes, we'd like to see them on the podium before darkness falls, but we will see. But 6 hours ostensibly lies ahead of us, and I simply can't wait. It seems months since I did one of these events, but just great to see the cars back out in the awesome sunshine. So, third batch of cars. Always at the front of this batch, it's BMWs galore and a handful of Porsche Caymans as well. It looks like we've got about 5 cars in the pit lane about to kick off their race from there.
Zwei Familien. 40 Jahre Firmengeschichte. Unsere Produkte entstehen zu 100% in Deutschland. Mit Herzblut und Hingabe. Wir schaffen den Technologietransfer von der Rennstrecke auf die Straße. Handwerkskunst, Erfahrung für diesen einen Moment. Das ist die Nurburgring Langstreckenserie. Das ist H&R. Performance made in Germany.
Sicher ans Ziel. Auf allen Straßen, bei jedem Wetter. Mit den zuverlässigen Sommerreifen von Falken. Jetzt Falkenreifen kaufen und Tankgutschein sichern. Weitere Informationen auf tankgutschein.falkenreifen.de. Falkenreifen.
hartes Duell. Kollision zwischen den beiden. Damit ist das der Führungswechsel zu dritt nebeneinander. Maximale Reaktion. Da brennt der Falkenporsche. Drama. Das Auto hat einen längeren Boxenstopp vor sich.
Und hier kommt der Gesamtsieger.
Der Rowe NLS Rückspiegel am Sonntag um 18:30 Uhr auf diesem Kanal.
Now, let's ride around the circuit. Car number 4, that'll be starting from pole position. Put on pole by Seo Picariello. He's stopping in the garage now for very strong coffee, and it will be his teammate, Martin Ragging, who's got so much experience. The Austrian racer really does know the Nurburgring Nordschleife like the back of his hand. And what he's seeing as he goes around behind the pace car at the front of the field is dry conditions. He's seeing shadow from the trees, just assessing the situation. It's not just a dry racing line. It looks, to my eye, snowy, as though it's a fully dry track, which is very, very good news indeed.
I would think so. I mean, it was certainly damp under the trees during the last bits of qualifying, hence those hand-cut slicks still being used in qualifying, not a full slick yet. I understand that full slicks are the norm for the start of the race. You say it certainly appears bright and sunny. Lead cars are currently heading down towards Adenauer, I think. Adenauer Force was now where it was quite damp still in qualifying. So again, we talk about these layers of this challenge of this circuit. You don't normally have a condition that fits a circuit. So it's dry or it's wet or it's whatever, or it's drying. Yes, you get that. But you've normally got 7, 8, 9 corners, a handful. A dozen's not normal. Yeah, here we've got 170 plus corners. And it can just change, and you go under shadow and things like that. I mean, just you said we've got our lead cars around at the moment, just coming through Adenauer Bridge, which is over the main road, and back up to the right-hand side. They climb up a hill there, and as we turn right, there's trees overhanging, so there's shadow. So all of a sudden, your vision changes, and it's like somebody turned the lights out almost. And you're sitting there, and you're trying to race for position. And you've got 6 hours of this. You can't mess it up, for want of a better phrase, a broadcastable phrase at the beginning. But you've got all these considerations to take in, and there's 170 plus corners. You've done a lap. We're talking, I say 10 minutes is a number. I know 10 minutes is everybody wants to beat 10 minutes, and that's very unfair to the drivers that go into sub 9 minutes. But you think of it roughly as a round number. It's a 10-minute lap, as opposed to, we normally think of 1.5 minutes is about a normal lap, isn't it? We go to Spa somewhere and it's 140s, 150s, whatever, depending on how slow you are or what you're driving. Some of the historic cars might even break 3 minutes, but that's another story. But it's all those layers again, and you can't imagine how much they've got to take in. And they do one lap, and that's just 10 minutes completed. You've got 5 hours 50 of this to go still. I know you've got to. I know you're going to say it's their job.
No, I wasn't going to be. I'm not doing facetious just yet. But the point in all that, it didn't bring a wry smile to my face. But talking about the conditions, the corners, and then you said, and then there's the competition. You forget the fact in all this analysis, and again, this could be a little bit dull, just looking ahead, you think about the setup of a car. If you've got a half-hour race, you pretty much know, is it damp? We're going to set up the car for that. But in this, is it going to be damp in the middle of the race, but only for 1 hour among 5 hours? You've got to sort of stick your neck out a bit, commit yourself to where you're going, but you've got to guess with the weather. But right now, riding on board, we've got bright blue skies, clouds in the distance. They're white clouds now. The dark clouds that came in for an hour before the start of the race are dispersing. It's a very breezy day. Those watching at the back of the paddock, looking down towards the Vidal chicane, great place to watch on the opening lap, I would suggest. The wind blowing in from Nurburgring village by looks of things. It's blowing across the back of the paddock, so it could be a factor. But the good news is right now that wind is actually just blowing the clouds away. The circuit is now fully dry, so the wind's had its role to play there. And I'd say these conditions look fantastic. Enjoy the view now. When we come back for the next round, those trees that are so fantastic around the Nordschleife, they will be in their full autumnal hue. We can just see a few of them starting to change after this rather damp summer we've had across Europe. But I just love that. This view, this is how a racing circuit should be as far as I'm concerned.
Couldn't agree more. Absolutely fantastic place. And a privilege to watch these cars around here. And as you've just said, all those elements. And then we just forget one other thing, and they're racing.
And they're racing against 142 rivals. It gets better, doesn't it, the more you say it like that?
I mean, on average, they get the GT3 cars, basically the SB9 category, they get approximately a clear lap, before they start catching up with the third batch, don't they, and start to come into traffic. It's roughly of that order. It's about a lap, maybe a bit more. Don't quote me exactly to the second, but it's roughly, they get one, when I say one free lap, one lap of racing with their peers, their contemporaries. Then that extra layer comes in of, now we've got the back markers, different categories. Back markers is perhaps an unfair description. The other categories, the batch 3 cars that have started. And then, of course, just as they get through those, they then catch up with the batch 2 cars. And then it just becomes ever-changing. You never know what's next. You might learn the circuit. Pole position man, Martin Ragginger, as you say, knows the place like the back of his hand. But the cars that you're going to come across, that's ever-changing, that's fluid. Never mind the weather. The car might be on this part of the track, that part of the track, and you can never stop learning. You've got to be thinking all the time. You can never have a lapse in concentration.
100%. I was just enjoying that. I always want to say, start that description again. Just the element. You think on a short circuit, how weird. I'm already catching the people at the back of the pack at the end of the first lap. But this is on a really long circuit, but that just goes to stress the 3 different batches of cars. One of the key features of the Nürburgring Nordschleife is its natural setting, and the helicopter is flying at the moment over the top of the field, an amazing view down over Schwalbenschwanz, and you can see the track feeding its way with these 140 odd cars weaving around, getting heat in their tyres on this enormously long formation lap. But in the background, the little villages. Then in the distance, you can see some more of the circuit. This is an organic race circuit. Right alongside it, it's got a main road. On the other side, when they go down the massively long Dottingher, straight back towards the pits, there's a local road. On the left hand of the main road, there are all these factories set up in a rural development area full of race teams, of tyre suppliers. This is a massive industry. And for the Nürburgring region in the Eifel, this was set up, the circuit, to cure rural unemployment. And boy, nearly 100 years later, it's really, really doing that.
Well, they didn't build a Mickey Mouse circuit to do it with, did it? To cure rural unemployment, and they built arguably the finest and biggest circuit in the world.
And it's still cogent
today.
Go large
or go home.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's a maxim we all try and live by, and that's just as it should be, particularly in racing terms. So the sun is shining down on the noses, the snouts, the front ends of those 2 Falcon Motorsport Porsches. The excitement in the commentary box is starting to really sparkle away, and I'm sure in the cockpits even more so. So on the front row, we've got Dennis Olsen on the grandstand side in the number 3 Porsche, but on the pit wall side, Martin Ragginger. So a Norwegian taking on his Austrian teammate. They've got a Belgian teammate and a German as well. 4 nationalities in one team.
And a top 10 curveball for you before the race starts. In P10, Valkenhorst Motorsport BMW number 34 Pro category car, driven by David Pittard.
Is he the start driver?
He is the start driver.
Well, we've seen over the years some astonishing opening laps from David, who's a driver who's basically, he's made his career, at his early career, then he started racing in this championship, and he's grown and grown and grown. His stature is absolutely fantastic. He was one of the winners last time out with Christian Cronjes alongside him, and also Ben Tuck. Can they do it again? But right now you have to say it's the Falcon Motorsport Porsches on the front row. The pace car peels into the pits. The driver's looking at the lights on the starting gantry, and certainly Ragginger's got a better start than Olsen, waiting. No one can overtake till the start-finish line. Lights just being held very, very long on red, but down they go to the first corner, and already the second of the Falcon Motorsport cars has been put back into 3rd place.
Yeah, Jochen Krumbrach in the Audi's got down the inside and got into nearly the lead as well there. In fact, he's taken the lead round the outside. He's gone round the outside of Martin Ragginger at turn 1. He dived down the inside by the pit wall and got all the way round the outside.
And from
Kevin Estre?
Yeah, Kevin Estre. I thought he might do a bit of overtaking. He's passed 4 cars so far, 6th up to 1st. He's now alongside. Is that actually it's the line speed.
He did have 2 wheels on the grass.
And the Falcon Motorsport cars, I was sitting pretty. They're down in 4th and 6th places instead of 1st and 2nd. And the BMW Junior Team car is also pressed on very well. That's consolidated, but it's a Lion Speed by Car Collection Motorsport Audi number 24. Retired Drudy, real fighter, as we expect. But that was a very tidy start, but a tidy start with overtaking. It's a 6-hour race, but those don't always work. But that was very good, and that's the respect and the professionalism at the very top end. And up into 3rd place, but getting pushed out. The Get Speed Motorsport Mercedes going, well, it's down in 4th place now, because coming through is that BMW Junior Team, number 44, their M6 being kicked off by Dan Harper. So lots of changes of places on the opening lap of the race.
Cars, they've only just got off the arena loop onto the Sabine Schmitz curve for the first time ever. Racing cars through there with that name. Onto the Nordschleife there, but the front two cars, the Falcon Motorsports cars, numbers 3 and 4 in reverse order, fourth being pole position, Martin Raginger and Dennis Olsen, first and second, and they're now already in 5th and 6th, can you believe? And they've only done a lap of the GP circuit. They're now onto the Nordschleife and down the Hatzenbach area. I noticed that Kevin Estre did have the second part. Is it the Vidal chicane? The second part. They're trying to go around the. I got the Audi wrong. My apologies. It was you quite correctly identified that. The Lion Speed car, the number 24 car, Matteo Drudi, that got into the lead, saw the car come down the inside down the pit wall into turn 1. He got the lead taken. Kevin Estre did do his trademark 2 wheels on the grass at turn 3. Turn 2, trying to get up the inside. But Matteo Drudi did. Let me just say, shut the door. He didn't leave it open. Put it that way. It wasn't even ajar.
Had 3 locks on it, frankly. It was, but Drudi is again not the sort of driver who's going to be backing out. Now it looks as though down in about challenging the Falcon Porsches now is the Walkenhorst Motorsport BMW. It's taking a little look. That's trying to get up to 7th place, having started 10th. And while all that's going on, as the cars are about a third of the way around the lap, the second batch of cars led by the KTM with the very, very funky new shark livery on its snout. Let's see if this is a start as equal as the first one. Again, the first car in the batch has got a car length clear of the rivals, waiting for the lights on the starting gantry and accelerating down to turn 1. Very tidy start. Looks as though it's 2x2 down to the first corner. What could possibly go wrong? But I have my faith in these drivers. And a little further back, it's 3x3. But blue sky, great racing down to the first corner. 6 hours of racing remain. Doesn't matter if it's 6 hours. At least 4 of the first 5 cars running off the track down at turn 1, where it doubles back on itself. They use the apron of the cut-through road of one of the many variations of the Nurburgring circuit. Use that for a little bit of traction wide of the line. But the KTM that started that class from the front is about 8 car lengths clear as they get up to the third corner, so he doesn't have to worry. But in behind, Porsche Cayman is coming up into 2nd place, so they're changing. But a brilliant start by the KTM.
Now, I threw in what I called a top 10 curveball, Bruce, with David Pittard. I'm going to throw another one just as we cut away to that second batch starting.
Why, is the first one not good enough?
Well, no, there's another one, and it's the BMW one as well. It is Dan Harper up into 3rd place. Started 5th on the grid, but he was starting to harass, of all people, on the starting lap, Kevin Estre. People don't harass Kevin Estre. When would we normally use that phrase in a commentary? Kevin Estre being harassed by Dan Harper, who is 21 years old. I know it's a junior team, that's the clue in the name, but 21 years old, winner of 2 of these rounds so far this year, and he's sitting there in the aging, ancient, almost historic M6 BMW. I exaggerate for clarity, but he's giving Kevin Estre a very, very hard time in that Manthey Porsche. Only a third of the way onto the Nordschleife with 5 and something hours to go.
As a lad, I was always told never to poke a sleeping lion with a stick. It's a maxim I live by today, because I didn't do it, but exactly that. So Kevin Estre will be...
Are there many lions in your part of the world?
It depends where your part of the world is on that given day, but Dorset, not so many. Namibia, a few more. Tanzania, lots more. Right, third batch of cars coming up to take the start. Gosh, it makes me want to go on safari, but not now, because we've got 6 hours of racing to enjoy. But... again, for these drivers, some of them didn't do as much racing as they wanted in 2019. And the third batch have almost come to a stop, waiting. The car in second can't overtake the one that's starting first, who's held them right back. And just as they pass pit in, the driver that's on pole for that grouping of cars then floors the throttle, builds about a 4 or 5 car length advantage down to turn 1. All is fair in love and war, but the batch behind, 1, 2, 3, the car's fighting 3rd to 6th, a 4 abreast down to the first corner, and again for about 15th place doing the same, 4 abreast as they go down to turn 1. It's a broad corner. Thank goodness. And if you had a little glance at the very, very back of the pack, there's a car you think has strayed in from the paddock like Hans Heyer did in the 1977, was it, German Grand Prix, when he wasn't qualified and he decided to go and race anyhow. But it's a little Dacia Logan. No, that hasn't just nipped out of the car park. That's the full production class. Nothing special about it, but such a fan car here on the Nurburgring Nordschleife. And that's the car that really must get wobbled when the SP9 cars come past in a massive batch together.
Now, talking of stoppage, we've already got an incident, and that's one of our second batch cars, 622, which is our VW Golf from the MSC Zinzig team. I'm not sure who's the starting driver in that, but that's gone off the exit of Schwalbenschwanz on the opening lap, and looks like it's just got a bit of front-end damage there, to say the least, and has taken itself off and stopped on the basically exit off Schwalbenschwanz onto the beginning of the Dottninger. That may well become our first code 60 of the race. It's yellow flagged at the moment, but hasn't got much further than that, sadly. In fact, indeed, I think we have got a code 120 at post 187 going into that becomes a code 60. So that's going to make very, very interesting for the top cars, the GT3 cars, the SP9s, Bruce. They're going to naturally bunch up, so any advantages that have been taken, any ground that's been made over that first lap is going to be neutralised straight away as they come through Schwalbenschwanz. They've got to start, and you need a really good exit to Schwalbenschwanz on the Dottninger. That's going to be taken away from you. But it's going to give the opposite of that. Is at the other end of that, at the Tiergarten, it's going to give people the chance to have a draft. Now, we know those Porsches have phenomenal straight lines. So keep an eye on Mr. Kevin Estre. He will want to use the track, the grass, and everything.
He's hoping the message...
respecting track limits, of
exactly. Oh, how we laugh. But just to reiterate, that was actually on the formation lap, because that car hadn't come round onto a full racing lap. And so the field bunched up. But again, you're quite right. The exit out of Schwalbenschwanz is just going to be special. There are 8 cars in that batch, down to the Phoenix Racing Audi, and a little bit of gap back to the Out Racing Mercedes, dropped back a bit. But the person who wants to prod that sleeping lion with the stick is still trying to do so now as they go past
Dan
onto
Harper.
the Dottninger. Dan Harper literally pushing, waiting for them to be released in this code. It looks like it's about code,
he showed his
code
hand.
12 at the moment, but they're waiting.
Kevin Estre is just blending across the track there. We've got the Audi at the front, Matteo Drudi, who sat in the middle of the track. We have Kevin Estre to the right and Dan Harper to the left, whilst they came up behind it. And sitting there thinking, right, that's the safety car, this is the code 60. What's going on? That's fine. And I think actually Dan Harper showed his hand brace. That's allowed the Get Speed Mercedes. 3 in the line here. Manthey, Porsche, BMW. Dan Harper's going for it. He's got round the outside. That's allowed to get through. And the Get Speed Mercedes trying to squeeze its way through as well. That's now trying to push Dan Harper along. Does Dan Harper need a push along the Dottninger in the outgoing M6 BMW? Clearly the Get Speed Mercedes thinks so. Giving it, I'm not sure there was any contact, but it looked like he's just pushing it along there. And Kevin Estre has dropped from 2nd to 4th in the space of the Dottninger. I said it could happen, but not that way round. I didn't think that BMW M6. It's somebody tell Dan Harper this is the outgoing model. I bet what he's doing here is he's displaying his wares and his skills to say, put me in the new M4, please. If I can do this in the old car, imagine what I can do in the new one.
And imagine what Kevin Estre can do. Fallen to 4th, that wasn't good enough. So back up the inside into 3rd place, into turn number 1. He was caught slightly napping, and the driver who said, thank you very much, you took the pressure off me is Matteo Drudi. But then a mistake, unfortunately, in turn 2 from Harper. So he went in 2nd and he came out 4th, and he's run wide. He's about to be put down to 5th place.
He's got a problem.
He's got a puncture.
Dan Harper's got a puncture. Understeering that car, definitely all over the place. Sorry, Bruce.
No mistake.
It's just it's not a mistake at all. There's a puncture in that car. So I hope that isn't from the result of any kind of contact or touching anybody. I hope not. It's a left rear. It's a left rear puncture, smoking furiously now. Now, mercifully, he's still on the arena loop, so he can cut back through and he can get back into the pits and get that tyre change. He hasn't got to do the whole north up there, but what a fantastic start from Dan Harper, now negated straight away. He said he was going to do a double stint, was the strategy in that car to start with. He was going to have to now, isn't he, to get that back up the order?
Really, really is. I mean, those cars, that trio got very, very close with... Krantz, I think, got very close to on one side, clearly, and on the other side was Kevin Estre, who wasn't really flying. But at the moment, it's Matteo Drudi. It's listed on my timing screen as David Pittard in 2nd place, but my eyes do not deceive me. The car in 2nd place is the 911 Porsche, Kevin Estre. It's listed as 4th, so we'll ignore that. It's clearly 2nd on the track. It's Drudi from Estre. 3rd place is Moritz Krantz for Get Speed in the black and white Mercedes. And riding on board the Manthey Porsche, he seems to have his tail right up and he's closing in. But still trying to work out exactly what was happening, where the contact came in that battle over 2nd place. And also trying to work out why David Pittard is being listed up in 6th place, 2nd place overall. Now, there was contact. David Pittard alongside the number 5 Audi, and that's Kelvin van der Linde. The Phoenix Racing went off the circuit. Maybe that's something that might be considered, because it seemed as though Pittard was pushing towards one side.
9th and 10th. They were reverse of that. They were 9th and 10th there, and Pittard through. What did you say? The Audi definitely running wide there. You know why Kevin Estre couldn't overtake at the start? There was no grass.
Well,
just tarmac. tarmac in a pit wall. It's out of his comfort zone.
Look, Harper's been watching all the replays, and he's worked out that Kevin likes to be on the right-hand side of the track there, and so he went down the right side. Kevin couldn't do it. But into the pits comes Dan Harper, the BMW Junior team, number 44. That right rear tyre coming off, removing any debris from within that wheel arch.
No obvious damage to the panel work or bodywork around that car, so I'm guessing non-contact, which is good. I wouldn't have accepted him to. I'd have thought the contact would have been at the front, actually, the way he was pushing. I don't mean physically pushing, but sitting so close, metaphorically pushing. Both rear tyres changed straight away. We've still got...
We've got another car slowing on the Dottinger Herd.
Yeah.
It's the second batch of cars coming through. Two cars slowing on the straight.
One rejoining.
One, can't identify it yet because it's coming very, very slowly. Front right wheel hanging off the car by the looks of things. In fact, it's about to park company, waiting for it to come through the heat haze. I always like to say that in September on the Nordschleife, but again, it's a long run in the sunshine. It's the Ferrari. It's the, by the looks of things, it's the one that qualified very well. Number 22, it's the WTM Ferrari. Yeah, look, that front right wheel is at about 35 degrees from norm. The bodywork is damaged. There's been contact. This has been limping home from clearly before Schwalben, before the start of the Dottinger Hör. It's a long, long run.
Right, a lot of damage to the front right of the Audi, just gone out of sight there, so we'll come back to which one that's damaged. That's I'm getting intel that it's actually the other way around. It's Pittard that's in the pit, not Harper. It's Pittard in the 34 Vulcan horse car that's in the pit with the right rear puncture.
That's how it got up.
Dan Harper is in the he's in the Shell car. Pittard is in the Total Energies BMW, and Harper is in the Shell car, and it's Pittard that's got the puncture. He's now out of the pits. And it is Harper that's running in 7th at the moment in 44 in the junior team car.
Sorry, you are quite right. Now we can see another car, a Porsche coming in. The 964 Cayman, not how it left the garage this morning. Front end of that looking rather stoved in. It's shared by the Friedhoffs. And 964, I can't tell you whether it's Axel or Max, but I can tell you it's going slowly, but it's on the Dottinger Hör, working its way back. Meanwhile, as they say, at the front of the race, it's Matthias Drudy being pushed very hard by Kevin Estre, and Estre in turn has dropped Maurice Krantz. Remember how close they were at the start of the lap, and Kevin Estre is right. He's half a car length down on the race-leading number 24 Audi Car Collection Motorsport car with Lion Speed, or vice versa, Lion Speed by Car Collection Motorsport. But again, Drudy very happy to carry speed and a little more circumspect at the moment from Estre as he drops back a few car lengths.
Now, we mentioned that code 120 that becomes 60 at the beginning of Dottinger Hör. That's what's caused the issue. It was actually David Pittard that clipped the back of Estre that's caused the puncture. That's why the car had to come into the pits. That's what's caused it. Meanwhile, the Audi number 22... it's the Ferrari, isn't it? My apologies. An Audi, it's a Ferrari. The number 22 car, that's the WTM powered by Phoenix Ferrari 488 with Jochen Krumbach at the wheel. That started in P8, and that's going to be out of the race, but that's got severe right front damage. The wheel is on it still, but it's 90 degrees out. It's got 90 degrees of toe out on the front right, so that car is definitely going to be out of the race, which is a great shame. One of our contenders that tends to come through quite late in the race, and certainly to be considered in that race there.
Just trying to see what we're getting back out of Fulker Motorsport. They started first and second. They came through in effectively 4th and 5th, which is also ahead of Picariello. Picariello's got plenty of company now. He's got Dan Harper right on his tail. Sorry for misidentifying those cars right at the start. And in behind, we've got Kelvin van der Linde now back off the grass, trying to fight hard with Harper to get in on that grouping. Maurice Krantz falling back onto the nose, not quite yet, but falling back towards those Fulker Motorsport cars. So I suggest this little bunch that is effectively third through to 7th place is going to close right up. And you know what? They're not that far behind the front group. Again, it depends on the shots as to whether you can catch Drudy and Estre, but Estre at certain points on the circuit carries more speed, but Drudy seems very, very good on the brakes and happy to just brake late into a corner.
Well, it's a finely developed and honed car, that Audi R8, isn't it? And you've got somebody like Matteo Drudy at the wheel who can capitalise on that developed car. It's not like it's new, like the M4 BMW, for instance, although the M6s seem to be doing quite well. They seem to be holding their own, as it were. But Matteo Drudy now got the Manthey 911 number and car right behind it of Kevin Estre, who won't settle for this for long. Now, of course, it's not going to be terribly long before now. They're up behind... They're onto the Dottinger Hör now, coming out of Schwalbenschwanz, so onto the Dottinger Hör, where we've still got the code 60 sitting there. So now have Audi, Porsche, Mercedes, and then the two Falcon Porsches in third and fourth. And of course, that man Dan Harper is now. That's the car up to fifth, isn't it now? Because obviously the Pittard car dropped out of the orbit. It was second, so we got from 10th to second.
Rocket Pittard.
I did say it was a curveball from the top 10, didn't I? 8 places in one lap, but unfortunately caught out at the end of that first lap and just clipping the back of Kevin Estre. Obviously, let's look out for but any potential damage to Kevin Estre. It's had contact now from a BMW.
And Estre didn't read the restart, well, not the restart, but the point of release very well last time around. And this time again, Drudy's got it right one more time. And suddenly Estre is being challenged from behind rather than being on the tail of the Italian. And Drudy pulls away about 8 car lengths as he gets up towards the end of the lap, the flick through the final few corners, and he's read it very, very well indeed. The challenge looks like it's coming to the second of the Falcon Motorsport cars. Picariello, told Picariello wasn't starting, we were told it was Ragginger, but Picariello is the name on the screen. And Dan Harper all over his tail in that BMW Junior Team M6. Off the start from straight though, Drudy about to start lapping. And it's the Dacia Logan having its moment of fame. The blue bonnet on the black flanks and the little green mirrors. Lots of details for a car that doesn't travel very fast. They all know it's out there, and the driver will keep very much towards the outside of the circuit to let them through, but he doesn't have to just let one car pass. There's a 5-car gaggle coming onto his tail. He hugs the inside line round turn 2. They have to take the outside line. He can stay there, and with the pace differential, they all black past before they get down towards turn number 3. But it's still Drudy leading from Estre. Krantz now being challenged very hard indeed by the number 3 Porsche that started second. That's Dennis Olsen looking very, very much as though he means business. Down the little short drag to the cut through that doesn't take them down the Grand Prix loop. It cuts them back round to the right, and then they go through the left, the right, then drop down the hill through into the compression up to the Vidal chicane, and then they get to turn left at the Sabine Smits curve. They've got more back markers to go around. Very production level BMW, passed with ease, didn't obstruct any of them. That's good.
New fastest lap of the race goes to Dan Harper in the junior team number 44 BMW with an 8:33.6 already. The car that stopped on the Döttinger is the number 960 Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 from the Cup 3 class. It's WS Motorsport car. That's the 960 that's parked on the right-hand side of Döttinger, and I think will be a little while before that's removed.
Well, the big trouble is we've got all these problems at the same point of the circuit. They've only got so many rescue vehicles and tow trucks allocated there at the start of the race to pull them clear. So there's an element to get them off the track and then in time.
Tim Shearbath at the wheel of that, starting that 960 Porsche.
First 2 cars made a break through the traffic. Moritz Krantz in 3rd place, dropping back at near challenge for 5th place there, because Pittard, sorry, not Pittard, but it's going to be through this before. Dan Harper all over the tail of the second of the Falcon Motorsport Porsche. That's Picariello at the wheel, and Kelvin van der Linde fancies a slice of the action as well. So suddenly that's the 3-car train. But importantly for Drudy and Estre, they pulled well clear as they got through that first gaggle of traffic. Advantage their way. Yeah, first 2 have gained about 2-3 seconds, and I've said this before, there's a drop of rain on one of the camera lenses, but it's up high. It's the lens of the camera. It's being carried so effectively and spectacularly by the helicopter, but just a warning, we did see clouds. They have been moving through, but they are bearing rain, and let's hope it stays in the clouds. But for now, the track fully dry, and Kevin Estre fully attacking right on the tail of Drudy. And looking down through the classes, well, in fact, the car that's leading is an SP9 Pro-Am class car. How come, you say? But this is the Pro at the wheel, so no problem at all for Matteo Drudy. He's sharing that line speed by Car Collection Motorsport Audi with Patrick Kolb and Lorenzo Rocca di Toropadula.
He's got it in twice already. We're all keeping a count on it. There is a tally. I will catch up, don't worry. I'm just keeping my powder dry. Now, Matteo Drudy just clipping a little bit of curb there, and we've seen this before with this Audi R8 a couple of times, well, not just this one, a couple of them. If you do, I wouldn't say monster, but if you just catch the curb slightly right, it does unsettle the back end of that car, and that's just allowed Kevin Estre to catch 2 car lengths in one go. Now, bearing in mind he was about 4 or 5 car lengths behind, that's virtually halving the gap. And that's given Mr. Estre a sniff, I would suggest.
Well, it has. He's made 2 poor restarts from code 60s or code 120s, according to where it was on the circuit. Each time Drudy's got away, but the important thing, each time Drudy's caught up all over again. And it really was a case of well, they know they're going to come across traffic, and sometimes it falls your way, sometimes it doesn't. And the second of the Falcon Motorsport Porsches got absolutely caught behind one of the back markers, lost about 5 or 6 car lengths, and suddenly Dan Harper was right on his tail, and then catching the pair of them was Sheldon van der Linde in the Phoenix Racing Audi. But then he, too, just as he thought, aha, I'm not going to catch them, I'm going to pass them, he then got blocked and fell back. So it's a lottery.
Ever there was a demonstration of what we said about how it's fluid and how it changes there, just there, a little microcosm of it for a matter of seconds. Suddenly, one slows up, almost hits the back of a slower class car, somebody else capitalises up, nearly goes down the outside. He shuts the door, that allows the Audi up the inside, the Audi says no, and all of a sudden, normal orders again. If you'd blinked or not looked at that for a minute, you'd have missed all that completely. He nearly had a complete change of order there between 3 cars in one corner.
Well, more to the point, we've still got double wave yellows on Dottinghurst, still recovering.
That 960 came and being towed, that it's going to be pulled out of the way any second now, so it'll be behind behind the barriers. And it's lost, I think, it lost a wheel? I'm not sure about lost a wheel.
It seems to be running quite well, but I think...
It's not running, it's being towed.
Yes.
It's definitely not running well, but it's being towed, Bruce.
Running on a wire, But I think what we're going to see, hey, these drivers are going, I'm really looking forward to when we come down the Dottinghurst at full racing pace. Haven't managed to do it yet in this race, because, of course, the first group of cars were met on the opening lap by the car that had crashed into the barriers or gone off the side of the circuit. We think it was crashed. On its formation lap from the second of the 3 groups of cars.
Well, that's a different car. That was the earlier car. This is something totally different.
Oh yeah, not this one now. I'm saying that even on the first lap, they didn't get down Dottinghurst at full racing pace, and every lap since has been another car or even 2 being recovered down that long straight.
Well, I think the first car went off on the formation lap. Actually.
He did. That's
Yeah,
exactly so.
That's embarrassing for to go back to the team. That's a walk of shame.
You tend to walk in the opposite direction, I believe.
I'd stay for at least 6 hours the opposite direction.
Riding on board, doesn't matter what car you're on, if it's a faster one, a slower one, it's just enthralling. You just realise even trying to keep out of the way is really, really difficult on the Nordschleife. If you've got one car that's much faster trying to come through, easy enough to do. And as a difficult look at a bit of on board, one car going up the inside of the other, the car that's being passed turns in on the other one, spins across the bonnet, so we may have another slow zone coming very shortly. That was a low speed moment, but I was just saying how difficult it was to keep out of the way, but unfortunately the car in front wasn't trying to keep out of the way. It speared across the nose of 707, just trying to see who that was. It's which of the cars carrying one of the many cameras. No damage done because it's still managing to continue on its way, but a moment not required for Florian Quant or Oliver Frisser in the BMW 325i. Meanwhile, up at the front, it's still Matteo Drudi leading for line speed by Car Collection Motorsport, still being chased by the Manthey Porsche, probably only about a fraction of a second between them. But the big story has really been how traffic has broken up these batches further down the field. And Kelvin van der Linde has lost out several times. He's still running in 7th place, but every time he catches the couple of cars in front of him, he gets pulled away from them by the other traffic.
I hate to say it was that 707 as well. The Porsche and the BMW got through. The poor old Kevin van der Linde there got caught up behind that Porsche again. I think it was just the way the corner and the traffic fell. I don't think it was a 707's error, but it was just like you say, he's just not getting the look at it at the moment, is it? Now, Kevin Estre it is that's sitting behind Matteo Drudi on the Dottinghurst, threading their way through the back marks of the Caymans. He's still getting a tow. There's a gaggle of traffic as they arrive on the uphill approach to the Tiergarten. Kevin Estre make a little move through. He's done it. He didn't need the grass. Kevin Estre gets the lead. He gets the tow on Matteo Drudi's Audi and takes the lead of the 6-hour race. Never thought it would happen quite so soon. I thought we'd do it on the first hour. Never thought we'd have to wait quite so long for it. But now it's going to return. They're back into the Tiergarten. There's traffic in the way. Can the Audi sit behind? And I think there's going to be a drag down the first straight here, down the pit straight into turn 1. Kevin Estre in the Manthey 911 has got the job done. They come out of the traffic. They're clear now. Clear run down the pit straight. But it is Manthey Porsche from Lion Speed Audi in 2nd place. And that has allowed all that traffic. All of a sudden, we have the Get Speed Mercedes not far behind now. Only 4 or 5 car lengths behind that. Followed by, with Grant Krantz at the wheel of that, by Dennis Olsen in the first of the Falcon Sport Porsches.
Right,
it's all starting to close up, Bruce.
It is, and I was really looking forward to that, because as I was just saying, it'd be the first time they come down the Dottinghurst at full racing speed, the first time we get to see someone using a slipstream properly before they've been abated their pace cut back by Code 60s and Code 120s as cars were being rescued. But the first time of asking, Kevin Estre did what people have done over the years here, get a good tow, and you're past long before the track just kinks to the left and then rises up for that final sequence of turns. Moritz Krantz in the second grouping of cars, he's got Dennis Olsen all over him, and that one could well shake it out. But again, that was Kevin Estre using all those years of experience and getting a great tow. And it doesn't hurt if you're coming up on a big gaggle of slower cars to be in something as bright and vivid as the Manthey Racing, the Grello, the green and yellow Porsche. It really stands out, and it's a day that has been bright, is less bright now, so it's again a useful tool, and not just that it looks good in photos, it's really good on letting people know precisely what it is that's coming up behind them, and so they can plan their route accordingly.
So as they go on to the north side, in fact, they're down through the Hatton. It's a new fastest lap for Farfus in the number 55 BMW. Why do I mention that? It's in 11th place. Why do I mention it's the fastest lap of the race? It's in the SPX category, but it's the new BMW M4. It is already established. It's outside the top 10. We know it started 17th because they didn't go for the option of using a hand-cut slip. They stayed on a wet tyre or an intermediate tyre for that, for qualifying. So that's why it was 17th. I know we said that before, but in case you've only just joined the show, that's why it was down there. It's now into 11th, so it's pulled up 6 places already, Bruce, but it's just set the fastest lap of the race.
You know, it was always going to be a sort of long watch starting from 17th. Yes, it's got to 11th. It's actually a long distance. It's 50-something seconds down on the car in 10th, which is Romain Dumas. Yes, him driving that at the moment. Great Le Mans champion, won this race. When I say this race, this is the Ruhr-Pokal-Rennen, long-running race. He won that back in 2017, but good pairing this weekend with Matteo Caroli, Dynamic Motorsport Porsche. He's in 10th, but he's a long way clear of Farfus. But last time around, Farfus gained 8 seconds, or the best part of 8 seconds. Of course, traffic's part of that. Of course, it's a long lap, but still very, very impressive indeed. And we'll see how far that M4 GT3 can advance. SPX, we're looking at the cars at the front of the field. They're SP9, but in SPX, that's SP Special Experimental class, running in a class of its own, but with Philippe Eng and Augusto Farfus on board, that one is going to be a very, very serious challenger through the course of this race. 6 hours of sort of effectively a mobile test for the drivers. The GT4 class, or SP10 as we call it, everything's slightly different nomenclature here on in the NLS. Some great battling going on. The Aston Martin from Pro Speed, lights are flashing, trying to clear people out the way. Being pushed very hard by the 165 Mercedes. That's the Schlitzalarm racing car. Marcel Marschwitz and Marek Bachmann on board that, but a great little tussle. And again, it just reiterates classes within the overall battle. But right now, the overall battle has Kevin Estre in the lead. Took the lead last time around, just under half a second clear of Matteo Drudi. I now want to see if he can pull away, but it was a judicious usage, Snowy, of the slipstream down the Dottinger Höhe.
He did, and he just eyed it up, he set it up, and just delivered it, didn't he? But the thing was, they were weaving through those different cars, and he could see he almost got a rhythm. It was metronomic. He just got a rhythm and just pulled it. And it was just almost a centimetre at a time, There was no rush for it. You said earlier that Kevin Estre has this ability of, he's utterly decisive, the complete opposite of indecisive. I know, he doesn't seem to hesitate. You look, and by the time you've looked and think, is he going to eye it up? He's done it. This time he didn't. Bit out of context for him. He built up to it and just neatly flowed, and all of a sudden, which side am I going to go? And I think he kind of almost used that pendulum of going side to side. Matteo Drudi's like, I'm not sure which way he's going to do. I'm focusing. We said earlier, they are racing, remember. This is for the lead of the race. Okay, so we're not just talking a class, no disrespect to those in the classes, but it's the lead of the race, and he's sitting there. You've got this Porsche, which you can't really miss because, A, it's fairly big, and it's very brightly coloured, and it's got Kevin Estre at the wheel, so you know anything's possible. And he just went left, right, bang, right, that's side, job done. And Matteo Drudi was just, it's not in my mirrors anymore because it's alongside and now it's ahead of me. Job done. Great manoeuvre by Kevin Estre there. Without the use of grass.
Without the use of grass.
For the moment.
That was the element of surprise that just added to the mix. But I remember long ago talking to Bertrand Gachot, back in the mid-1980s, when he was starting, he had a sponsor who said to him, you have to be able to convince other drivers that you are going to come through come what may. And if it means I have to buy you 2 new chassis, that's what we'll do. And that's what he did. He put his nose down the inside time and time again. And then he had the natural speed to go with it. But it really was a case of if you think someone's just having a little look versus you think they're coming through, it's a very, very different thing. And I'm not suggesting they're in the same bracket, same category, but there is that element of intimidation. And if you expect the other person who's going to make the move, then well, it's your choice how you handle it.
It's the philosophy, it's the approach, as you say, isn't it? There's that great line from Martin Brundle on Ayrton Senna when they were in Formula 3, when they actually dominated back in 1983. And I thought it was possibly one of the most telling comments from Brundle about Senna, or a driver about Senna. They were absolutely at the forefront of that. They dominated that series completely before they got to Formula 1, both of them the following year. But Brundle's quote was, that put it in absolute perspective for me, I've never forgotten it, and it's now nearly 30 years ago, the quote. He had a very bright and distinctive helmet, bright yellow, and he'd put his car in such a position, he left you to decide whether you had an accident or not. And I just thought, I've never forgotten that, and it's exactly that theory, that philosophy of, well, you decide, I'm going to put it there. You're not going to cause an accident, because there's no point, take you out in nobody's interest. But it's that element of doubt. It never does any harm to have a bit of a reputation.
Can go against you having a reputation. But
we won't go about your court appearances again, though. We'll leave that out of it for now, Bruce.
I was looking at you then for a second. Right, so if you're just joining us, it's a 6-hour race. It's the 6th race of the championship, and it's a Porsche in the lead. It wasn't there at the start of the race in the lead. It was starting from 6th on the grid, but Kevin Estre very nearly took the lead on the 4th corner of the opening lap from Matthias Drudy, who came up from the 2nd row. But in time, after finally we got full racing speed down the Dottinger Höhe, he made the move stick, used the slipstream beautifully, and worked his way up past Matthias Drudy. But that pairing, about a second and a half clear of the best of the rest, which is Moritz Krantz, the Get Speed Mercedes. So we've got 3 makes of cars in the top 3 positions. Then Falken Motorsports, they started 1st and 2nd, but they're now 4th and 5th. Dennis Olsen in 4th place, and Seo Picariello, the pole setter, in 5th place. Dan Harper pushing very hard in the BMW Junior team M6 GT3. So that's 4 makes of cars in the top 6 positions. That's very, very good news indeed. And coming up the Dottinger Höhe, suddenly we've got a 3-car train in that battle for Picariello, Harper, about 2 car lengths behind. It's Kelvin van der Linde, who dropped back a little bit when the track just kinks to the left, because I think he was wincing because he was seeing Dan Harper trying to challenge around the outside of Picariello, and thought, I'll cut them a little bit of slack because this could get a little bit too tasty indeed. But the punch of the BMW looked very good onto the start-finish straight, either side of a back-marking car with van der Linde. It went from 6 car lengths back to 3 to 4 to 2 car lengths back. He's now half a car length down on Harper, who's a quarter of a car length down. He's inside now. The BMW going up the inside of Picariello. You know what? Van der Linde's gone around the outside. Oh, this is fantastic racing. 3 makes of cars, 3 absolutely competitive drivers. And it looks though Dan Harper's got the move done. But the order changes again, because Picariello, as they go from turn 1 to turn 2, is now outside, becomes inside. And very outside is unfortunately Harper, who's been shoved off the track before they get to turn 3. He's fallen to the back of the group. Van der Linde side by side, clattering doors with Picariello. And you know what? As they go out of turn 4, Dan Harper comes through to take the position again. Overhead shot shows these 3 cars absolutely side by side. There's a cut through coming up, guys. A little bit more rubbing, and Van der Linde down to the back of the pack again.
Well, credit to all of them, but Dan Harper at the cutback there, the hairpin, he just stuck it down the inside, and you could see that it wasn't really on. But those two, the Porsche and the Audi, were so busy touching one another and contact and bouncing off one another. I thought this was Cannock Raceway, never mind an NLS round. But Dan Harper saw the opportunity there. He'd been run wide, he came back, he never lost the opportunity, and he got it down the inside and literally just stood it onto the corner and stopped it virtually stationary comparatively at the apex, got the job done, and let those two busy to sort themselves out. I'll just take this opportunity and get on the inside. I've lost out 5 times in 3 corners, but he's taking it back again. And the beginning of that was at the end of Tiergarten, when the traffic, you could see Dan Harper lined up the back marker in front and making sure that the the Porsche went one way, and he scooped down the pit wall. How they got there? 3 abreast into turn 1, 3 abreast into turn 2, turn 3, still 3 abreast. And it wasn't until turn 4 that Dan Harper got it done and said, I'm having this one. I've sat back and watched this now. It's now mine.
Yeah, but what just needs pointing out again, even reiterating if you feel like that, but it was the fact that Harper between turns 2 and turn 3 was off the track and beyond. He was way out to the side, and yet somehow, because the others were fighting so hard into turn 3, he got back on. And normally if you're off the circuit at the side with 2 completely competitive rivals, you're not going to gain. Van der Linde has just about to lose the position as being pushed by Picariello, and now Picariello trying to pick his way back onto the tail of Van der Linde. Van der Linde just gets around a back marker, but Dan Harper, he's made his break. He's got clear, and now it's Picariello all over the tail of the South African. Van der Linde's
touched it. He just touched the back of him. He actually just clipped into the back of it. In fact, that's slowing already. I just wondered if there's a problem with Picariello. They had to do a bit of damage straight away because he did just kiss the back of that Van der Linde's Audi. You said already, Bruce, that Van der Linde's had no luck with back markers in this race. He did get caught out there and put wide onto the grass, which allowed Picariello into touch with him. And Picariello got the draft, sat behind him, got a little bit closer, and there was a tiny little kiss. Didn't see any bodywork fly. I wouldn't even describe it as an impact. It was I wouldn't even say it was a kiss, a bit more of a smooch. But it has dropped that Porsche back. And I just wonder if he's picked up any kind of issue with that, because it's suddenly dropped down the order a little bit, not in terms of places, but he's dropped 10 car lengths rather than being right on the back of it there. Fastest lap of the race so far is Matteo Drudi with the previous leader in the Audi with an 8:02.
That's the fastest lap in qualifying. That's no surprise. Qualifying is very, very compressed, and also the track conditions were really rather slippery, but I really do fancy there is damage to Seo Picariello's Porsche, because suddenly Hubert Hout has caught right up Bilstein liveried Mercedes, getting onto the tail of the Porsche. That Porsche is definitely dropping back and going nowhere fast. It's the 740 BMW with the Kevin sponsorship up the side, but gravel in every orifice by the looks of things.
Into the pit lane? Or was it all close there because it's lots of traffic, or is it... It certainly looks like on the arena loop of the circuit to me. Let's have a look where that is.
I'll give you a choice. It's either Johan Muttinen or Dan Bergholt, but whoever is on board the 740, they are still on board. They can't get out of the car because the tyre wall is right alongside the driver's side of the car, but that's deep in the gravel. Is that turn one? I think it's very, very deep in the turn one gravel.
Or is it? I think you could be right. It's certainly looking that way. It's the 740 car.
It is. It's run very deep into turn one, and it's before you get the tarmac of the cut through that they often use on the opening lap. He's not even got that far. He's gone across the tarmac apron before that and just looped it round. I think he's trying to drive through the gravel and just failed to do so. I think he's had an earlier moment.
Yeah, it's powered into the gravel, hasn't it? It's got, as you say, it's gone straight on, totally outbraked himself at turn one, powered on into the gravel, and he should have, so easy to say sitting here in the commentary box, we're not in the car at the time, but it looked from the tyre marks in the gravel that traces through there, which is our only evidence, the sort of datum lines in the gravel, that if he turned right a bit earlier, he might have got on the power and got to a bit of tarmac, but unfortunately not the case be. But that's a car, of course, with NLS, the car will be covered, it'll be pulled out, they'll shake all the gravel out and he'll rejoin, and no harm done apart from pride. And they've got to move it because he can't get out of it.
No, yes, pushing as hard as he might, but never easy to climb out the other door on a car. Great battle between a gaggle of 5 Porsche Caymans, nose to tail. I love it when you get these class battles. 977 very much in the middle of that grouping, going from third in class to second in class, but as he does that, the one that's running fourth in that grouping trying to make a move, but the Kramer Racing Porsche 977, I think, they're 3 abreast down to turn number 1. Great little battle between them, and again it just emphasises no overtaking on the start finish straight, though they've just seen the waved yellow flags because of the aforementioned BMW, which is already hooked up to a tractor about to be towed out of the gravel. But for that little grouping, there was definitely about to be an overtaking manoeuvre, but obviously they had to can any consideration when they saw those yellow flags on the start finish straight. And again, at the Nurburgring, the start finish straight, like many start finish straights, is not flat, it's not level, and when you get there and you walk around the circuit, you realise you get to halfway down the start finish straight and it starts to drop down to turn 1. So your visibility isn't always what you would assume if you've never been to a circuit, only ever seen a circuit map. So looking at that battle, it's always such a good battle in the Cup 3 class, well supported. It's the Cayman GT4 trophy class, and hugely well supported. In fact, I can tell you there are 20 starters in that grouping, so anybody who wins that class gets a really helpful dollop of points towards their overall gathering for the year. So if you race in a well-supported class, harder to win, but when you do, by golly, it's worth it.
zwei Familien. 40 Jahre Firmengeschichte. Unsere Produkte entstehen zu 100% in Deutschland. Mit Herzblut und Hingabe. Wir schaffen den Technologietransfer von der Rennstrecke auf die Straße. Handwerkskunst, Erfahrung für diesen einen Moment. Das ist die Nurburgring Langstreckenserie. Das ist H&R. Performance made in Germany.
Sicher ans Ziel. Auf allen Straßen, bei jedem Wetter. Mit den zuverlässigen Sommerreifen von Falken. Jetzt Falkenreifen kaufen und Tankgutschein sichern. Weitere Informationen auf tankgutschein.falkenreifen.de. Falkenreifen.
Ein hartes Duell. Kollision zwischen den beiden. Damit ist das der Führungswechsel zu dritt nebeneinander. Maximale Reaktion. Da brennt der Falkenporsche. Drama.
Das Auto hat einen längeren Boxenstopp vor sich. Und hier kommt der Gesamtsieger.
Der Rowe NLS Rückspiegel. Am Sonntag um 18:30 Uhr auf diesem Kanal.
The first two cars, Kevin Estra leading by 1.5 seconds, the Manthey Racing Porsche from Matthias Drudy, who's had a really good start to this race. He's in second place. In the Lion Speed by Car Collection, Audi, and third place Moritz Krantz. Again, a strong run for him in the Get Speed Mercedes, but he's got now Dan Harper behind him, as he has been for a while, but importantly, he's no longer being challenged by Dennis Olsen, because Olsen has served a first pit stop. So the number 3 Porsche has been the first to blink, if you like, but that might have benefits later on. But we will lose that from the front end of the field for some considerable time in this race. So it's always an element that when you're commentating on this race, you have to just keep an eye on the ones that have dropped out of the immediate action at the front of the field, aware of the fact that later in the race they'll be running the longer stints where their rivals will be going for a shorter run. Fastest lap of the race still with Matthias Drudy, 8 minutes 2.142 seconds. That seems like a long lap. It is a long lap, but at that speed I can guarantee the 170 corners would have gone past in an absolute flash. Going down the classes, SP9 Pro-Am is Matthias Drudy in second place because he's got an AM partner in that car. SPX is still in 11th place, but gradually edging closer to the dynamic motorsport Porsche of Romain Dumas is Philippe Eng in that brand new M4 GT3. Its first race for BMW, and it's an honour to have it here on the NLS. Top runner in the SP Pro is Harkema in the 350. SP7, it's Von Danwitz in car number 57, and that's the specials class. Hendrik von Danwitz in a Porsche 911 GT3 Cup class, always a well-supported class. And just for reference, He's just under a second clear in class, and that is in 18th position. So a very good competitive run. And the car running second in class is car number 69. The driver is Robin Tranowski, and that is, of course, another Porsche Cup class car.
Bruce, we have another code 60 at Kesselchen, which is for one of the Fricadella cars. Panic ye not, though, it is for one of the Cup 3 cars. They're 718 GT4, get it right. So I start that again. Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 entry in the Cup 3 class. That's the 962 Porsche. That is stopped at the right-hand side. Whether it's a result of an incident or not, I'm not fully sure at the moment, but it is stopped at Kesselchen. The important factor being it has caused a code 60 there. A 120 into it as a slowdown, then a code 60.
So many things that crews have to keep an eye on in the pit lane because they've got to warn their drivers wherever possible, and code 60 can have a big factor to play, particularly if you're trying to nurse another lap on your fuel load, or if you think there's half a chance, because we've had quite a few code areas, and particularly down the Dotting Hill. Obviously you'll save a fair bunch of fuel if you are not flat out down that straight where you plant the pedal as you come out of Galgen Cop, and then it's flat until you get to Tiergarten, and then you have to consider a spot of braking, a little bit of steering, get through the final sequence of corners. And another person I need to point out, running in two classes, that might seem a little bit greedy. SP4T and SP8T is car number 140, Gabriele Piana, who seemingly can almost do no wrong in the NLS. In fact, he was an outright winner of this very event a few years ago, Ruhr-Pokal-Rennen. Just having a quick flick to see when Gabriele won it, but he seems to base himself in Germany and does it with considerable style. He won it, it was 2018, sharing with, how's this for an illustrious crew, Adam Christodoulou, Hubert Hout and Manuel Metzger. Hout and Metzger paired together this weekend. Adam not on the entry list this time around, but he's done great things on the Nordschleife over the years.
You wouldn't class them as amateurs, would you?
Yeah, you might at your peril, but still looking at the gap, still 1.5 seconds, a tenth or two going the way of our race leader Kevin Estre from Matthias Drudy. But now Moritz Krantz has caught right onto Drudy's tail. He's just 0.2 of a second down on him, so the first three covered by less than 2 seconds. And Dan Harper got a 2 and a bit second advantage over 5th place Kelvin van der Linde. But from Anti-Racing, 911, the Grello Porsche, green and yellow. Clear track for once ahead of him. So down the Dottinger Her, not likely he was going to get a tow from anyone, but what he doesn't want to see, the French racer, as he goes towards the half distance on the straight, still absolutely flat out. The rise of the hill and Nurburgring Village ahead of him to his right. A couple of cars up ahead, but they're not in a gaggle. That's fine. He should be able to pick them off. There's a Porsche Cayman. Wave blue flags for him. In the background, though, the battle for second place, very fierce indeed. Matthias Drudy giving a slipstream, a tow to Moritz Krantz, the Get Speed Mercedes. Up to Tiergarten, no problem at all for the race leader. Flash of the lights up the inside of the Porsche Cayman, which keeps out of the way very nicely, goes Kevin Estre. Thank you very much. Lap number 6 about to be completed. His gap last time around in 5 racing laps, 1.5 seconds. This time around it's going to be more than that, but the big question into the background of the shot is still Matthias Drudy in second place. So Moritz Krantz didn't get to use a tow to overtake him to take that second, but over the start finish line 3.9 seconds, so 2.5 seconds as near as can be gained that time around. And again, up in front of the race leader, there is clear track. He can cut the corners exactly how he wants, Peter. This is not a factor for all of the race, but when it's there, you grab it with both hands. You want to eke every advantage you can get.
100%, Bruce. And I just a visual there of Kevin Estre. The car is very bright and vivid in its colours anyway. It's almost another Grello, isn't it? And we can't go because that's been name checked already by Mercedes, that team. But it is that sort of luminous highlighted colour, whatever. But the image of that car coming up through Tiergarten with Kevin Estre at the wheel, absolutely dancing and skipping that car through there, absolutely at the top of his game there. It's a Porsche 911, it's number 911. He's leading the Nurburgring with many hours to go yet. I know, let's not forget that, but he just absolutely just looked like he's on it, at one with his car, at the top of his game. I just hope that doesn't jinx anything. Because the commentator, we know what happens next, don't we? And he's off. No. And you're listening? No, he's not, by the way, just in case.
Now, one of the things, one of the cars further down the field, it's got a new shark livery at its front end, but you don't need to put a shark livery on the face of the Manthey car. It sort of does that on its own. It looks fierce. But I'm just keeping a little bit of a look out, because with the weather's it's gone from damp this morning with a little flurry of rain overnight to bright sunshine before the start to grey before the start. We then brightened up, and now here we are with still 5 hours or so of racing, and the conditions are getting a little bit darker again. It could yet be a factor. So Kevin Estre will be looking at the sky going, hope I get back and hand over to my teammate before it starts raining.
I think Kevin Estre is capable of doing virtually anything in that Manthey car, but I think looking at the sky is probably the last thing he's doing at the moment, knowing him. He won't care. He'll just get on with it. He'll be avoiding the grass and getting on with it. Just back to our code 60 at Kesselchen. The intervention vehicle is now there to recover the Fricadella Cayman. So that will be sorted very quickly, I think, and that will get it. Neubauer is in the pits, number 35, in the Valkenhorst Motorsport M6 GT3. So that's one of our top runners from 8th position at the moment. So that's the first. That's going to potentially be a driver change. We'll keep an eye on that for us. Kevin Estre it is that's leading from Mattea Drudi at the moment. Porsche, Audi, Mercedes, BMW is the top 4 German mix. It is then, of course, Picariello in the other Falcon Motorsports. Porsche is in 5th position. That's our car number 4. Our pole sitter, we did question as to why he wasn't actually in the car for the start of this race, because he was a pole sitter, and that's because our timing screens told us it was otherwise. But when the race started, it was Picariello actually into that car. In 6th position, right behind him, is the number 5 Phoenix Racing Van der Linde driven Audi R8. In 7th position, Herbert Haupt in the eponymous Haupt Racing Team by Bill Stein, Mercedes GT3. Just out of the pits in 8th position, of course, our screen will update. There is a driver change. Van Berlen takes the wheel of the Valkenhorst Motorsport BMW. And 9th position is Romain Dumas in the Dynamic Motorsport Porsche 911. And rounding out the top 10 currently is Espen Laub in the CP Racing Mercedes. I was going to say the first of our Pro-Am cars, but it's not. It's the second of our Pro-Am cars. Of course, the first of our Pro-Am cars is right up at the front of the order. I've forgotten that one for a minute there. Matthias Drudi in the Lion Speed by Car Collection Audi, number 24 car, currently running in second. Just 3.9 seconds after, we're just over an hour into this. We've only got 5 hours or 4 hours and 58 minutes to go. But it's still only 4 seconds at the front of this field, Bruce.
It's fantastic. You know, I have to sort of sometimes sit back and just analyse that. And then you look down, you have other classes, and they're door by door. The Cup 5 class is really, really tight. And the Cup 3 class for the Cayman GT4 Trophy by Manthey Racing has been led by Tim Scheerbart at the moment, but only by about a third of a second. So things can keep on changing back and back. Tim Scheerbart now always doubled to 0.6 of a second. He's in 960, and 969 is in second place. And driving that at the moment is Oscar Sandberg, so they're having a really good scrap. And less than second down is 955, so those positions may well change back and forth. And the driver of the third in that grouping was Arnie Hofmeister, Team Matol Racing. So fabulous battles, and of course for them they've got 6 hours all in to sort this out and see who's going to take maximum points in each of the class. Maximum points overall, will it go to Manthey Racing? When I say overall, I mean the SP9 class, which is at the very top. And another class that's super close, just enjoying that, 614 taking on 685. This is in the H2 class, and it's Renault Clio's, and they're covered by a third of a second. So here we are, more than an hour of racing in, and 614, Tobias and Daniel Overbeck being pushed super hard by 685, which is the MSC Adenau, so local club, local car, the Renault Clio Cup. That's shared by Gerrit Holthaus, Mark Villach, and Michael Bora. So nose to tail, one in front of the other, one almost pushing the other. Renault Clio's, so they've been racing Renault 5s, and it moved on through to Clio's. They just always provide fantastic scrapping. In fact, I remember the Renault 5 TSs. I took some friends once to join me when I was covering Formula 3 and something, and I said, do you mind? I'll leave you. You can go to the bar, do whatever you want to do, and you can enjoy yourself while I'm working. I was enjoying myself too. And at the end of the day, I said, well, which of the races did you like best? And I was surprised when they picked the Renault 5 TS race, but they said it brilliant. They were on 2 wheels, sometimes on 3, sometimes in 4. I thought the slowest cars on the agenda, but the racing was absolutely fabulous in that. And I think that's always been the essence of the way Renault supports the junior classes.
Absolutely, and I'm just trying to remember back in, late 80s, early 90s, the Renault 5 Turbo, was it series then?
Oh, epic.
Who was the standout English guy in there that... I've got a feeling Nick somebody.
Edwards. Oh, Nicky Phillips.
Nicky Phillips, that's right. I remember talking to him about racing, looking at the possibility of that series. We're going back to 1990. And he's again, a piece of advice that stood out to me. He said, if you do the series, he said, never qualify on the front row. And I said, why is that, Nick? And he said, because the second row always use the front row as brakes at the first corner. He said, never qualify on the front row. And again, it's one of those things that it sits there, it's logged, it's remembered, and 31 years later. Of course, I was too young to be driving it then. I was aspiring to being old enough to race a car at that point. Move on, Bruce, move on.
Moving on very swiftly indeed. Right, I was just talking about the Cup 3 class. It's now 0.685 of a second, but 969 is now in front. So we've had a little bit of a change. 960 was leading, and that was Tim Shearbart. He's now been passed. So that's going to seesaw backwards and forwards, and as it should be, with 19 cars in that class. But unfortunately, one of them is 6 laps down, meaning it didn't get to start the race. Or it could be one of those ones that failed to get around on that formation lap. And we did see one being towed to the side of the circuit a lap later. So I think that's the cars that were 19th and 18th in class, but still leaving an awful lot of racing between them. But the scrap at the front, really classic. 960 and 969 changing order all the time. 960 in Cup 3 being pushed. Is being driven by Tim Sandberg, Shearbart in the second place car, and 3 seconds back now, Arnie Hofmeister in 955.
Well, still taking a little time to clear this vehicle from this is the Fricadella Cayman, in its Cup 3 class at Kesselchen. So we still have a code 60 there. It starts at marshal post 126, is a yellow, double yellow at 127, then becomes codes 120 down to a 60 for literally on the left hand of Kesselchen there, on the exit. The car appears to be there. The intervention vehicles have attended the scene and have certainly, I think they've got the car hooked up, but it's moving along slowly, but they'll get that out of the way. It's not, I thought that would be deployed sooner rather than later, but it's not quite, it was cleared rather than later deployed, certainly. So only code 60 at the moment, and now we've got yellows at marshal posts 205 and 207.
I always find it entertaining when you have numbers as large as that for marshal's posts. We think so many circuits make do with a dozen marshal's posts around their lap, and here we are at 200 and something, and you're not even at the end of the lap. Where would you reckon 205 is? How would you describe which part of the circuit are we looking at there?
I'm going to guess it's somewhere in the order of the other side of the Caraccio, the Carousel. I would say it's herring up to potentially the highest part of the circuit, appropriate named if you know German, Hoheacht.
Right.
The lead car into the pits.
7 laps on the board, and in they come. Bear in mind we had the number 3 Olsen Porsche coming in after 5 laps. We had the Neubauer number 35 Walkenhorst BMW coming in after 6, and after 7 in come the Cavalry. 9-11 from the lead, 24 from second place. That Matthias Drudi, Moritz Krantz from third place, and number 9 Mercedes from Get Speed, and Dan Harper, who's driven really, really well, coming in from 4th place, all pitting together. Pit stops, nice and ordered. Hubert Hout is in as well in the Bilstein Mercedes. Different shade of yellow. It's much more custard yellow, where it's the sort of acid yellow, if you will, on the nose and flanks and roof of the Manthey Racing Porsche. And again, actually, when you look at it, it's 2 shades of green. It's a lighter green and a dark green together, with arrows running from the front of the car, as if a bit like the early days of running in a wind tunnel, putting paint on the front of a car. That's how I paint walls, actually. And seeing it flowing towards the back, absolutely fantastic. And the liveries, we talk about this a lot, Snowy, but they do just get better and better. Now you can wrap cars, catch commentators out. Imagine that. By changing liveries from weekend to weekend, if you want. Whereas in the longer goes, you used to, if you were lucky, get your livery at the start of the season, and that was that.
Well, of course, that was back in the days when they used to paint cars, as you say. They don't now. We say it's a wrap. It's not some kind of lunchtime food. It's literally it's a vinyl wrap. It's printed. That really started because not just more consistent, but paint is thick and it runs. And it's thicker at the bottom. That sounds silly. It's like glass. We always forget glass is actually a liquid. It's thicker at the bottom. But that was the reason. It's the consistency of they can put it into a wrap. We think it's easy for the advertising and marketing. And whenever you watch anybody wrap these cars, sitting with the curves and contours and bits now, it's an art into itself, and people do it. And I've seen them come in and they come up with these literally rolls of it, like you say, probably their power or wallpaper or Laura Ashley or whatever it may be. Obviously, your house, your part of the world, and they sit there and they put this thing over the car. You just think, really? And then they use heat guns and all sorts, and they make it all fit, and all of a sudden your car's a whole different colour scheme, and then they change it 2 races later. You get a different sponsor, well, change it.
It's just a comprehensive change from the days when there was a chap, Stickers George, up and down the pit lane. He would apply the individual stickers, but now the point is it's just an entire livery that goes on.
If you were posh, they were called decals.
If you were, yeah.
Yeah, apparently some of the front range teams called them decals. We used to call them stickers.
I'm still slightly smarting about the Laura Ashley reference. We're so concrete in our part of the world. Modern. Right, so the car's back out onto the circuit. Kevin Estre has refused to let go of the steering wheel, so he's doing a second stint. And number 24 car, though, has changed hands. It's not emerged again with Matthias Drudi, who started it, but Patrick Kolb has taken over. It means third driver waiting to have his turn. And Janine Schoffen has taken over from Moritz Krantz. But Dan Harper, like Kevin Estre, has stayed on board for a second stint. And again, we will see a different way through the sequence of drivers than we normally do in a 4-hour race. There are 6 hours for them to divide their time. And I think with the 2-car teams, no, let's not say that, because Kevin Estre, of course, has decided to stay on do a double stint. But with the pit stops being measured, it's not like you have to hurry through a driver change. It doesn't add anything to a pit stop in terms of time. So it's up to driver fitness, driver desire, what the weather is going to be later in the race, etc., etc. But Kevin Estre, well, he'll take everything, and has continued to do a second stint.
I'm going to be controversial here and throw something in. It's got nothing to do with the drivers. It'll be entirely down to the strategists, and they will tell the driver what to do, and the driver will do their job.
I laugh. It's a stage laugh, knowing there's a very large element of truth in that. But I certainly think when you get to the very pro end of the sport, you might have your own opinion on that.
Well, I think so. Never having achieved that, I wouldn't know. But I think that's always the element of that's exactly what team managers don't want to do. They don't want drivers to think for themselves. Drivers to do as they're told. Follow the contract, follow the rules, get on the radio. End of.
Yeah.
So it's all going to shake out. Our top 10 are virtually all of them pitted. Some of our driver changes. As Bruce has just said, we've got a couple of cars in here that are 2 driver for a 6-hour, 2 driver for 4-hour, quite normal. Even 3 drivers in 4 hours. But normally in a 6-hour, you expect it to be a 3-driver lineup. Not expect, but it's not unheard of. Or quite used to have 3 drivers in your 6-hour lineup, 2 drivers in 2 hours apiece. But not the case at the moment. Estre stays aboard. The leading Manthey Porsche. Obviously, we need to let this little lot shake out a bit, but there are some various changes there. Putman in the CP Racing is now also out of the pits, and Klaus Aberlin in 11th place brings in the Fricadella Porsche, and I confirm the other Fricadella car, the Cayman 718 that went off at Kesselschön, the 962 car did indeed have an accident, so that's presumably why it's taking so long to recover. It's not just a recovery, it's going to be barrier repair.
Okay, now one thing's very early stages of the race, we saw Jochen Krumbach very slow on the Döttinger because the front right wheel of his W2M powered by Phoenix Ferrari was at a jaunty angle. Well, very jaunty and then some, because it was almost 90 degrees to the angle. That is in the pit, will not be continuing by the looks of things, but anyhow, there could be long repairs on that. But one car that did emerge from the pits is in 128th place overall. Trying to emerge. It's David Pittard's car. So the damage was maybe rather more than we thought. We saw it limp back with what we thought was a puncture after contact, but he's only got 4 laps on the board, whereas Kevin Estre has had a pit stop and emerged after 8.
I'm slightly laughing to myself here, Bruce, just that phrase. 2 elements of it. 128th overall is in itself quite a statement. And then you mentioned David Pittard, who went from 10th, and I didn't predict, but I did say curveball out to the top 10. Watch what he might do on that. We have used the phrase in the past NLS rounds, haven't we, of pitbull Pittard, which is meant in a positive way, as he can just do extraordinary things. You said extraordinary opening laps, which is exactly what he did do, and put it up to 2nd place. Unfortunately, because of that other category car that went off on the formation lap, there was a code 120 down to a 60. My apologies, onto the Döttinger Höhe just at the end of Salbentrans. So that caught David Pittard out. It just tapped the back or caught Kevin Estre and just caused himself a puncture, which is why he came into the pits for that change straight away. But the idea of Debbie Pittard down in 124th, was it 23rd?
128.
128, sorry. I put it
He's hoping to get in the top 125.
Yes. I mean, in their mind inside the top 10 and getting to the top 100. So, there we go. We always like a bit of prediction bingo, don't we? And it is a lottery. Pittard, that car, 34, Volkenhorst. Where will it finish?
Well, he's 4 laps down, just waiting for him to get to the... Just looking at the various timing sectors. I've got 5 timing sectors. He hasn't got to the 4th one yet, so I'm just trying to make sure he gets to that he hasn't stopped out on the circuit.
I'm going to throw my hand in first. It's not my final hand, but I'm going to say the first part of this is at least in the top 10.
I dispute that.
I know you would, that's why I said it.
Yes. I just think from that far back, you're not going to gain... you're not going to gain 3 laps to get back. You will need to be on the same lap as the race leader after 6 hours to be in the top 10.
I'm going to counter-dispute you.
Oh, hello.
It's like in the courtroom, this isn't. And I'll tell you why. You're still thinking the 4-hour race. It's a 6-hour race.
I am. Okay, well, we'll see what his lap speed is next time around. The man's mad. He has gone through the 3rd timing sector. He may be getting up to the top 125. He could. He's 128 at the moment. Okay, so keep an eye out for that one. In fact...
Oh, you mock now.
I feel you've stuck your neck as far out as a giraffe.
Well, it's there for the taking.
Okay. After the pit stops, before the pit stops, it was about just under a 4-second advantage for the Manthey Racing Porsche. Kevin Estre stayed on board, and he's now stretched it to 4.6 seconds, and I think it's going to go even more than that. Patrick Kolb has taken over the car in 2nd place, the number 24. Audi, starting Kevin Estre. The first one was into turn 4 on the opening lap. Didn't quite make the move stick to go from 6th up to 1st. Had to make do with 2nd place. But then the first time that the field came down at full racing speed down the Dottingerhohe, took the slipstream, made it work, didn't even bother doing what we expect, delivering his trademark by being on the right-hand side of the circuit and hooking his wheels on the grass before the track kinks left. Already had the move done before that kink. Took the lead of the race. Since then, it's been under control. Fastest lap of the race is still actually Matthias Drudi, who was in that car he was fighting against, the number 24 Audi. But 8 minutes 2.1. That's a very, very good lap. And he did it when the fuel load was still relatively heavy. It was about halfway through the opening stint. But anyhow, the gap's 4.6 seconds, and I can only see it growing in this stint ahead of Patrick Kolb, who's got Janine Schaffner about a second down on them. And in fact, I fancy Dan Harper to pass the pair of them. I think the number 44 BMW Junior Team Porsche, the car that won not last time out, but the time before and the time before that, the only crew to have won twice so far this year, to go up into 2nd place on this lap or possibly on the following one. But I think the number 44 BMW is going to pick off first Schaffner and then Patrick Kolb. That's my prediction.
So what was that again? Could you run through it again? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Were you eating biscuits again? No. I come here as trying to be a serious commentator. You're sitting there eating biscuits, honestly. Oh, so am I. They're my biscuits.
I was going to say, who provided the biscuits? Just a small point, but I'm still going to stand by it.
Okay. But I just want to see. Hold on. David Pittard should have finished that lap. I just want to have a little look, see, has he advanced from 128? Oh, I'm sure he has. He's vaulted up to 124th.
There you go.
Oh, and in fact, his first timing sector around this lap is the fastest that anyone has done at any point in the race. So,
I'll take the points now, shall I? Tim's going to disagree on that one, I'm sure.
Twice.
Just saying.
Twice one of the cars carrying onboard cameras, in this instance the Get Speed Mercedes, flashes past a flatbed, and twice I haven't been able to identify. It looks like one of the SP9 class Audis, but I'm trying to work out which one it may be. Now, am I fancying slight drops of rain on the screen? Not yet, but looking at the clouds that are starting to gather, I think we could be getting a bit of rain within the next half an hour. You really hope not. Let's spoil the race, and also one does feel the Eifel region so heavily affected and damaged by the rain does not deserve any more until at least October.
I think the Get Speed Mercedes Edge has got its pockmarks on the windscreen there. We saw quite a lot of this last weekend at the Barcelona round with the tear-off windscreens, and most notably the E-Deck Mercedes as well, that had It looked like Johnny and I commented, Johnny Palmer, commented it had been in a Bond film. It looked like it was a villain's car, which had all sorts of bullet holes over the windscreen. Then finally at one pit stop, it did have a tear-off screen taken off. Then we realised all the bubbles were on the first layer, so it was no different at all. It just hasn't improved it one bit. It was, why did you take the tear off? It wasn't really worth it. So it got air trapped in it. So I think that's that. I think they weren't drops of rain, so they weren't moving either on the screen.
It's a bit like I was looking at a photograph someone put up somewhere of a fantastic photograph taken at a cricket ground, and it's taken where a ball has passed through a window into the pavilion, and it's just looking through the shattered glass. So the difference between a good photographer and a less good photographer.
Snapper. Yes.
Now, leader of the race, is it Kevin Estre? Or is it Dennis Olsen? There's a question for you. Of course, Dennis pitted 2 laps earlier and is listed at the top of our time screens at the moment by 23 seconds. Wait and see, because Olsen's car is going to be the car that will flick-flack with whichever car came in after 7 laps to be at the top of the charts, according to where they are in their stints. So the next pit stop for the number 3 Volker Motorsport Porsche, of course, will be before the one for the 911 Porsche. So they're doing things differently. The shorter first stint, maybe it will give them position. And right now, if you want position, suddenly there's a real compression. And Janine Schaffner in the number 9 Get Speed Mercedes is being harried by 2 chasers. The number 6 Manuel Metzger-driven Hout Racing Mercedes all over the tail, and Martin Ragginger, who's taken over the number 4 Falcon Motorsport Porsche. So suddenly very, very busy, and Janine Schaffner's been passed, and the other 2 have gone away, the Falcon Motorsport Porsche and the Hout Racing bright yellow and blue Mercedes have dropped Janine. Janine's going to try and hang on as close to them as she can, but then Moritz Krantz will take over again, and Moritz, no disrespect, Janine is the quicker driver in that car. But that, of course, is running very well indeed, still deeply inside the top 10. As I say that, another of the Walkenhorst Motorsport BMWs goes past Janine as well. So that's it's the von Bohlen driven car, and that should make it Mario von Bohlen, who took over from Thomas Neubauer, the car number 35. So Janine's dropping down, and remember that was 3rd position overall, the number 9 Mercedes, and that I think has now just fallen back to 8th place. And the others going away. Now the car that I worried was an Audi was nothing of the sort. It was the 962 Porsche. That was the Fricadelli one you've been talking about. That was in the Cup 3 class car. Saw it twice on the flatbed. And Jules and Hendrik von Danwitz were sharing this one. And reporting back to the paddock, maybe not for duty. A little bit of front end damage, are we seeing?
Serious left damage at the left rear. Got a broken toe link. It's it's got damage a lot of the right rear. It's recoverable. There's a lamps missing at the rear. A lot of the rear PU's damaged, and a serious amount of toe out on the right rear. I would say it's repairable. Repairable for the race is what I mean. It's always repairable. There's always an associated bill with it, of course. But it's now back into. So where do they park that? Of course, they parked it on the outside, don't they, of the what is now the Sabine-Smits curve into the car park, and you can choose to go and get them there. There's a 950 up there already, car number 950. So I think that 962 Fricadelli Cayman may well be the end of its race, unless they want to go and recover it and get it back to the pits from there. I don't know whether they can do or not.
Well, 950 was the Black Falcon Team Techstar Porsche Cayman that we saw being towed in on the opening lap of the race. So that was one that was being pulled up dotting a her. They don't go up towards the pits, they turn right before that and then drop it in what looks like a service station at the right hand side of the circuit by the Sabine-Schmitz curve. Right, waiting for the end of this lap, just looking to see the gap. Really, the one I'm interested in is the one between Kevin Estre and the driver I thought would go up into second place in that train of cars, Dan Harper. He's done so. Harper's just got past Patrick Cole to take second in that group, but the gap is nearly 18 seconds, Snowy. That is a really big gap that has grown a lot. So it was clearly a good pit stop from Kevin Estre, but also a very good lap when he came out. His out lap, so he gained 10 seconds over Harper. That would explain how the gap has gone out so much. So Kevin Estre clearly fully attuned with the car, as was Dan Harper, but maybe the traffic fell his way. That's always the issue around the ring, and also we have had various slow zones, and it might have caught one of the drivers and not the other, because certainly in terms of normal pace, Dan Harper's not 10 seconds slower, certainly, than Kevin Estre around the Nordschleife.
No, just spotting a moment there, I don't know whether it was having a moment keeping out of the way, but the number 40 car collection Audi, from the SP9 category as well. Milan Jonta car. That was just seemed to be having a bit of a moment there, going through the arena section, sort of modern Grand Prix loop, and just sort of keeping out of the way of things. Not quite sure why that was. That car is...
It's down in 21st position.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any particular reason as to why that be happening.
Clock at the wheel of that car. So, yeah, it just seemed to... Just like it had a bit of a problem there from it, but I think it's got going again. It wasn't recovering from anything, it might have just kept out of the way, but it's an odd position to be in there. As you say, 21st. It's a Pro-Am run car, Pro-Am category car.
Yeah, and the core set of drivers, it's Milan Doncha, very much a pro in that car. Klaus Kloch, Jörg Fieber, who knows everything there is to do about Porsche, so he's racing an Audi. And Peter Schmidt from Car Collection Motorsport, the man who's put together the incredible team that's just grown and grown over the past almost a decade now. But Peter on board this weekend saying, not all the fun should go to my drivers, I am one of my drivers.
Yep, still the barrier repairs continuing at Kasselchen after the 962. I know when I say 962 to you, that probably means a Porsche, doesn't it? It is a Porsche, but it's car number 962, not a Porsche 962. We're not going back
so
30 years.
Confusing.
I threw a curveball there, second one of the show. There will be more, don't worry, I've got a bag full of them. Barrier repairs continuing at Kasselchen there. So the car was, we commented it had some front end damage and a reasonable amount of impact on the right rear, but not enough. Not a huge amount, but it appears to be a lot more damage to the barriers because they're taking a lot longer to repair. But of course, the marshal's got to get out there to get a Unimog out there. If it needs a strip of armco replacing, that's got to be unbolted. If it's bent and all the bolts are strained or whatever, it takes a while to get on with it. And they're hugely efficient at doing this. 2 or 3 layers of barriers. It's nothing to go and replace. It's not the work of 5 minutes, quite literally, as we can see. So the car's out of the way. But unfortunately the marshal's out there, and that's the bigger part of the Code 60 is the safety of the marshals out there on track repairing it. But hopefully before too long we will have that removed and we can get back to a green flag area at Kasselchen. Whereas there'll be a Code 60 somewhere else on the circuit.
Well, it's hardly so. There's a very slow moving car coming up the Dottinger Höhe. You think, why do cars always break down on the Dottinger Höhe? No, they don't. It's where you see them as they're limping their way back and in the compression before the track. You drive along the Dottinger Höhe and it's far from flat. You go 2/3 way along and it suddenly starts to rear up, and the stricken BMW is limping along, left-hand wheels on the grass, trying to keep out of the way, but it's at the bottom of that compression, may not make it back to the pits. Now, just talking about barriers, a couple of weekends ago I was at Brands Hatch and going off at Westfield. If you hit the barriers head-on, it's not a good place, and we saw Benjamin Goethe going off there, and it had about an hour's delay, because when you hit barriers head-on, they do an awful lot of damage to the supports. Most incidents, you're hitting it at an oblique angle, but major repairs needed to be done there, and we really put the meeting on the back foot. But Benjamin was fine, the car wasn't, but again, it's the angle at which you do strike the barriers that can make a very major difference. Right, Dennis Olsen leading the race, but he's going to owe us another pit stop. Well, he could go as far as lap 13. He did the first pit stop, or maybe only lap 12. He did a pit stop after lap number 5 laps of racing. He's got 9 laps on the board. He's 19 seconds the good over Kevin Estre, but he's going to be coming in at least 2 laps before Kevin Estre. I'd say 2 laps before Kevin Estre. So this is going to seesaw. So for Falcon Motorsport, they had the 2 cars on the front row. This is the one that started from second place. Kevin Olsen, last time around, 8 minutes 42. Which is 4 seconds slower than Kevin Estre. But again, the riding clause, there could have been traffic in the way there to make that. Because in terms of natural pace, both of them in Porsches, I'd suggest they'd be lapping within half a second of each other in terms of lap time.
It's that age-old thing. I know we've got a long way to go still, Bruce. However, Porsche's first and second. Not only is it evidence of how strong that Porsche platform still is, but further evidence by 2 different teams, Falcon and Manthey, both making that at the top 2.
Long way to go. But it's 2 Porsches, a BMW. I still actually really rather fancy this BMW Junior team. They've done it over 2 of the 4-hour races so far, and I think they're really well-balanced lineup of young drivers who've learned to race together. Dan Harper, who's starting, Max Hess and Neil Verhagen. So 3 nationalities, a Brit, a German, and Verhagen from the US of A, and they're over here doing great things. And I think this championship is something that any manufacturer that has a junior team should put your drivers in for a couple of seasons, because I think you learn so much racecraft, there's so many possible pitfalls, and it's learning to avoid the pitfalls that I really think makes a young driver. Doing lots of 20-minute, half-hour races without much that's different, I think you learn less. You learn skills, undoubtedly, but I think the scope of what you can learn on a circuit that has endless corners, endless gradient change, lots of different classes of cars, plus the weather, you can fall over so easily. It's about eliminating those mistakes.
100%, and we said it before, haven't we? We saw, I think it was Dan Harper, wasn't it, earlier in the season, where they popped him from the M6 into an M2. Was it him that they put into, what's in one of the junior teams?
It might have been Ben Tuck, actually.
I think it was Ben Tuck. I think you're absolutely right. But I knew it was one of the junior team. But they said, right, you're not in the, for no reason that we know of. And
feeling comfortable. Yeah, exactly. Know your environment.
Okay, going to put you in an M2. And as you said, though, but the point was that what he could learn from that opportunity of being mid-class, it gives him an insight into when he goes back into the M6 of what it's like to get around that traffic, understand the car. It's just information, it's knowledge, it's data. There, he now goes back into the M6 thinking, right, and he comes up behind an M2 or another car, Cap 3, I think it was, category. He now knows what they do, what they behave. He's got an understanding of it, and you can't buy that. You can sit behind it and watch, but you can't learn that any other way than having your bottom in the seat, putting it bluntly, and driving the car and doing a stint in the race. There's nothing like a race to go and do it. You can go testing, you can even get into qualifying, but there's nothing like being in the race. And that experience outside of your comfort zone, it's to be encouraged and absorbed and to watch. We've got I think we've got a KTM going off with an engine actually on fire as well. That's the 921 KTM. That's one of the 927. My apologies. And that was the car that started from the pit lane. One of the Teichmann Racing, the 3 entries in that category there. I think that's the GT4 car actually.
GT4, they had one that was not a GT4, didn't they? So this is...
Yeah, 1 GTX and 2 GT4 cars. Well, the driver's away from it as it billows into smoke. It looks like it's potentially put itself out already. I'm not sure.
No, Tamino
Berg flames, put it that way.
We couldn't see the driver for a second, but he's about 5 metres from the guys. Now going back to, I don't think it's fully out yet. Tamino Bergmeier going to have a look. He's sharing that with, or was sharing it with...
there are flames. There are most certainly flames.
Is there a marshal behind the car, or is it the colour licking of a flame? So he hasn't managed to do that thing you really try to do, but he maybe had no option to get it by a marshal's post.
Well, he has. He's done that. He's got it by exactly the right place.
He's got it at the side of the track, but there is no marshal's post there. There's an opening in the barriers, but for the drivers coming through, he's about 100 metres from a marshal post, getting agitated. He's jumped over the barriers now to get on the grassy side, but for drivers coming through, there is now a pall of heavy black smoke. A marshal is now approaching. He's found a marshal who's jogging in. Fair enough, he's carrying a heavy fire extinguisher, but so frustrating. You know the moment when you're driving a car that's on fire? I've fortunately never had to do it, but you don't realise it so much to start with because you can't necessarily see it. But when you finally see those flames licking, and it's on the Grand Prix loop, which is a good thing.
There's a fire tender now approaching from left-hand side of the track. They're going to shoot across the track in front of the traffic. Always it's a great manoeuvre there by the marshals, looking left, check both sides and pull out onto the track diagonally across the track to get to that KTM before it completely destroys itself. And it's not just a complete insurance write-off, but there's a fire truck there to attend to that straight away. But yeah, it's I think it's the one thing that drivers fear the most is fire. It's from a purely commercial point of view, even if you're out of it and safe, if it engulfs the car, it's a total loss. You've ever been involved in insuring racing cars, that's the total loss. If it's destroyed by fire, that's what we're insuring against. Not accident damage, that's always repairable, but the total loss of fire is not good.
Well, the marshals have done a fantastic job. I mean, there's a lot of smoke billowing around the car, but that's actually extinguishant being sprayed from the rear. The gull wing door, well, the clamshell door is up. Tamino Bergmeier got out pretty quickly, but at that point he must be thinking, Marshal, I've got to find a marshal. Now we've got more course vehicles, 3 course vehicles around it. There's a medical vehicle, but importantly, Tamino Bergmeier is fine. Don't know at what point on the Grand Prix loop he spotted the flames, but thank goodness from his point of view they got the fire tender across very quickly, because just one marshal with the fire extinguisher I don't think would have done the job. So much was the blaze. But of course, how does that affect the race overall? The race over and out for the number 927 crew from Teichmann Racing with that Expo. But for those behind, will you be delayed when you come up across the incident, because certainly for those who were soon afterwards, when the flames really took hold, the black smoke, they would have lost speed as they had to back off. Looking, have we had a symbol saying yet the message? Have we got any codes around it? Not as yet, as we wait on that one. So, still the number 3 Porsche running out of sync with its rivals in the SP9 class, leads the race by 19 seconds from Kevin Estre. Estre made his pit stop, as did all of the top 8 at that point, 2 laps later. So Olsen has still got time to run 2-3 more laps after this one. No, this one and then probably 2 more before he makes the second pit stop for Falcon Motorsport. The other car from Falcon Motorsport, the one that started on pole, Seo Picariello started it, Martin Ragginger took it over. That's in 5th place overall, but that's running at the regular point with the lead group, in that they tended to make their pit stops after 7 racing laps, whereas the sister car came in after 5. But lights are flashing from number 3 Porsche, down the Dottinger it goes, then up the rise towards Tiergarten, coming up on the Dacia Logan, still minding its own business, still being passed very easily indeed. Nice waving of the blue flags. In the background of the shot, to look down that long straight, bright yellow and green car, the Manthey Racing Porsche. I reckon Kevin Estre is a shorter distance behind. He's got someone trying to pass him. That's a bit cheeky. A Porsche Cayman trying to pass the Kevin Estre. No, getting a fantastic toe. Maybe he's just got past it earlier in the shot. Yes, he has. Now as he gets the twisty bits at the end, he's able to pull clear again. Yeah, sorry, I thought for a second the Porsche Cayman was trying to use his slipstream and come past. Again, that's the foreshortening effect.
Well, just a quick update on the Valkenhorst number 34 BMW. It has climbed its way to 120th, and David Pittard has now pitted that car. No pun intended there. So that's going to have I would assume, a driver change at this stage. So we are at... yes, we've got another half hour in, aren't we? So we're 4.5 hours to go, which is going up to, 4 hours 31. Porsche, it is still dominating, as seems to be the way at the moment. To say that the bit that appeals to me there, or intrigues me, of course, it's two different teams making use of that amazing platform of that 911 GT3R. Falcon, it is at the moment leading from Manthey. It's been the other way around. Kevin Estre and Dennis Olsen, both SP9 Pro categories. Our Lion Speed car currently running our number 24 car down in 4th position. Of course, that's going to set that. That's our Pro-Am car. That was right up at the front earlier on.
Right, I was looking at the gap between Olsen and Estre. It was 19 seconds, and I said it had come down. It's come down to 12.5 seconds, so 7 seconds gained by Estre, giving chase for Manthey Racing. Great scrap for, let's have a look, that's for 5th place. Martin Ragginger just holding off. That's in the second of the Falcon Motorsport Porsches, holding off Manuel Metzger. Manuel's won this race before, and had body language. He wants to do it all over again. But for the Hout Racing team, they're running with 3 drivers in their lineup, whereas the Falcon Motorsport cars, the number 3 and number 4, are running 2 apiece. Yes, the poor lambs be a little more tired at the end of the race. If you were a team boss, Zoe, over 2 hours, let's try that one again. Over 4 hours, 2 drivers, pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Over 6 hours, would you prefer to have 3 if they were all a fairly equal measure?
I think that's the key indicator of equal measure. That's the point. Yes, of course you would over that, because drivers are less tired. Have we got a code 60 going past the...
Oh, we do now.
We do have a code 60 going past the KTM, and so they've all just suddenly slowed down. That's exactly why. That's good. For the KTM, the 927 car, the Reichmann car, is still sitting there gently, little wisps of smoke coming out of it. But what is most important, firstly, is the driver's out of it. That's fine. But car-wise, now switching back to the driver's okay. We get that bit established first. Is the car looks like a KTM still, it's not partly dissolved and burnt away. So the other side of that, of course, is that the marshals have done that fantastic job getting that fire truck across there and putting it out. But you just know the mechanics, sorry, they're called technicians these days, we're looking at that just going, that's a clean-up and a half, isn't it? Or other words to that effect, or phrases. But other phrases are available.
Other phrases apply language according to your nationality. But just to let you know where that was, we didn't describe it fully. It was when you drop down into the... We're on the Grand Prix loop, we're going towards the end of that loop, you drop down into the dip, and then just before the track, when you're
just off the Schumacher S, isn't it? So
yeah,
up the hill and down.
Before you come up the hill to the Vidal chicane, before you take that kink, It pulled off just on the left-hand side of the circuit, on the outside of the circuit, which made it harder for the marshals to get to it with the vehicle, because the marshal's post on the outside was further up the climb, and the marshal had to run along with the fire extinguisher. But the fire tender and the driver will know that next time around is on the inside of the circuit, effectively behind the paddock, on the back slope of the paddock. There's a gateway through, and the fire tender came from there. So for Tamino Bergmeier, he will have learnt that lesson. For his teammates, they'll be remarkably relieved. The car will probably not be back in this race, one feels, but it will certainly live to fight another day. So good work by the fire marshals.
A particular part of the circuit called Advent Arc, I'm assured by Time Certain Clock. Thank you very much on Twitter for your updates. Always valuable information, little bits and pieces that we don't always know. The minutiae, shall we say. We do big corner names and class leaders, but always good to have some background.
Just have to make sure he's not slipping in some stuff he's decided to make up and test us. I can't believe you fell for it like that. But
airtime is airtime.
Yes.
No such thing as bad publicity, Bruce. You should know that. Being a former editor, come on.
Editorial standards, one has to try and get them wherever
things
possible.
Things have changed since your day, of course.
Cut it out of slate in my day, as far as I remember.
I know, and they use colour photographs now. It's extraordinary, in print as well.
I'm not falling for that. So, leading the race, it's still the number 3 Falco Motorsport Porsche, and it's been doing a very, very good job indeed. Dennis Olsen, the Norwegian, started the race, but came in after 5 laps. Bulk of the rivals, a couple came in after 6. He came in after 5. The rivals came in after 7. He's leading the race, but his advantage over Kevin Estre is coming down and down. And that could be a big, big factor across the 6 hours. The gap was 12.7 seconds last time around, but we still have the race peppered by slow zones at various points, and that's always a factor to consider. Car number 36, one of the BMWs trying to pick its way up the order. That's Henry Walkenhorst, the boss of Walkenhorst Motorsport, running 13th overall, but we haven't really talked about this class. We've talked about SP9, SP9 Pro-Am, but SP9 Am, Walkenhorst is second in that, but leading with a big leg up, Janine Schroffner, because her car, Get Speed Performance Mercedes, was started by Moritz Krantz, who came in from 3rd overall, so he gave her a big leg up. But Henry Walkenhorst sharing with Jörg Breuer and Andreas Ziegler, number 36, Walkenhorst BMW. Nice, tidy job. As the sun starts to shine in the Grand Prix loop again, so the weather's been fickle. It's been going backwards and forwards. There were little possibilities of rain, but only when seen from the helicopter. And that's good to see that things are a little bit brighter right now. And in fact, the flatbed is on the track alongside the stricken KTM, and the car's coming past almost at walking pace. So it's down to code 60, but it looks like code 30 at that point.
I would disagree with you again, Chig. I would say the recovery vehicle's not on the track. I'd say it's breaking track limits because it's got 2 wheels over the white line on the grass, and it's stationary. That's another issue.
I would concur. I'll throw that back. Or not concur. I would disagree. If you've got 2 wheels on the track, that's
Make
fine.
Make your mind up.
I'm trying to give you an option, so you can start your excuse.
I was going back the Get Speed car, the number 9, Moritz Krantz, and Janine Schroffner, Mercedes-AMG. I would say that's the very definition of a Pro-Am car.
Totally.
Absolutely, 100%. That's exactly what it should be about. As you said, Janine Schroffner getting a great leg up from Moritz Krantz in the 30 part of the race. But that is the very definition of Pro-Am racing. It gives somebody that's not pretending or alluding or aspiring to be a pro driver, but out there doing it, and it gives them the opportunity. And sometimes there's a different way of looking at it. If you have your pro driver puts the car so far up the order, it puts you in an area outside of your comfort zone, and it's for then rather than trying to aspire, you're automatically in there. So it's exactly what we said about the sort of Ben Tuck situation of the going from the M6 to the M2 in the junior team. Learn, absorb, take in, recalibrate something. It puts Janine right up there, and that can only be a good experience to learn. Okay, what's it like? She may not hold her own amongst her. You wouldn't expect her to be honest, but it will give her an experience that can only build on. If she takes it the right way, she can only learn on that. Learn from that.
No, exactly so. And we saw when she took over, she suddenly had the likes of Martin Raggi going past, Manuel Metzger. They come past, and you expect them to go past. She can look at their cornering lines for a few corners, see how they tackle traffic, and again, just bank the experience. And in a 6-hour race, in just a 2-driver lineup, she's got plenty of racing.
as I've often said to amateur drivers and co-drivers and things of gentleman drivers in more historic trades, watch, listen and learn. Just sit there. It's all, take it all in. It's all information. You're not expected to do the time. You're not expected to gain position or keep in touch. But as you say, somebody of that quality there for Schaffner, Janine, Ragginger going by, watch what he does. You might only get a few seconds of it, but you'll learn something from it. So don't waste the opportunity.
David Pittard is in the pits, but he's risen to 121st, but expect after that...
He was a place higher when he pitted, I did mention that.
Oh, okay.
Don't diss him.
I'm not.
120. I know what you're up to.
I'm absolutely not. I've got 4 hours left.
4 hours 23, do you mind? Those 23 minutes might be important.
4 hours before the last 20 minutes is what I was leading up to say.
My apologies. Then.
Right,
sorry.
The gap at the front of the race, it was 19 seconds. It was last time around 12.7 seconds. Dennis Olsen, is he going to start diving for the pits? It looks like he's going past, but I'll tell you what, it looks like he's got Kevin Estre right on his tail. It's down to about 2 seconds, I would surmise.
1.4.
Oh, 1.4. Or between friends, 1.395 seconds. So clearly there are elements at the side of the circuit that force them to slow. The stricken KTM being cleared up, but that's been a remarkably good lap for the chasing Kevin Estre. But just get this, to give you an indication of how much they've had to slow on this lap. The fastest lap of the race, 8 minutes 2.1 seconds. That time for Kevin Estre, 8 minutes 58. That's how much he had to back off in the slow zones. And 9 minutes and 9 seconds for Dennis Olsen. I fancy the race leader Olsen will be in at the end of this lap. If he follows his 5-lap stint with a 7, we know the cars can do 7 because the bulk of the front end of the field did 7 for their opening stint. Then suddenly Kevin Estre will be in the lead, and well, depending on his whether he decided this would be his short stint and do a 5-lapper, and then he'll come in at the same time, or if he'll stick with 7 laps, he'll come in 2 laps time. But as he gives chase to the race leader, they have to back right off. No overtaking as they come up to the yellow flag, still being shown at the little compression before you rise up to the Vidal chicane. Just trying to take a look as we ride aboard with in the Manthey Porsche. Has that KTM been cleared yet? Still some course vehicles to left, looking around the back of a production class BMW, and the KTM is on the flatbed, so next time around that should all be up. There's another racing car alongside it. Seems to have pulled up by the rescue vehicle, unless it's a course vehicle that's got a very racy race livery. And as soon as they're released, of course, Olsen floors the throttle, nips past the little Peugeot, and Kevin Estre just sort of tried, seemingly almost clattered into it, but didn't want to lose even a fraction of a second. Into the Sabine Schmitz 2-part curve being used for the first time in racing this weekend. 2 left-handers, and then the track drops away. And this, to me, Snowy, is where the magic starts, onto the Nordschleife.
Oh, just fantastic. As you say, it's that reset as you come through the Vidal chicane on the modern Grand Prix circuit, onto that double left-hander, now named Sabine Schmitz, one for each apex, as it were. Actually, she always hit an apex. She won the 24-hour here twice, and of course was VLN champion back in '98, I think it was. In more than incontestable credentials in her car for that lady, and great that a corner, if it's going to be named after anybody, then I can't think of anything more appropriate. But as you say, they come out of that double left-hander and onto Hatzenbach, and that's where it suddenly starts. It becomes a roller coaster, but it's narrow, and even at the end of the Hatzenbach, it suddenly narrows, and you've got the tiniest strip of grass either side, where you suddenly get up to a maximum speed. They go over a brow at that point, and that's where you lift off, because otherwise it doesn't like going over the top and skipping around a bit, so you just lift off a little bit over that and down into a dip, and then you get some real fast flowing bits, and then it just changes again. And it's just to me, we criticise quite often the Tilkedromes, but it's, if you can imagine all these circuits, it's almost like the Ascari circuit. Take every corner you like in the world and put it into one big circuit, and here you've got it at the Nordschleife.
Exactly, and any circuit where the trees almost join above the top of the circuit, that gets my vote. So now, lead of the championship last year, number 1 on the door, still leading the way. The number 1 BMW. Look at the front of the entry list. He's not there. You have to look the whole way down for Rink, Brink and license. BMW 325 looks standard. Well, it's in a production class car, and just continues to go well. Doesn't matter what the year is, leading the championship outright, and just the exemplary way of tackling. Down in 88th position overall, and it's Danny Brink on board at the moment, but always have to look out for the orange and blue BMW. It's always a factor, and they know how to do the Nordschleife races in the NLS, and again, year in, year out, they just run so well, leading the class, the V4 class, by some margin. Second place car is 707, which is one of the camera cars that we've been watching the action from, but well clear. So another job being done very, very well by Brink and Lyson. And that KTM still being clear, but it's on the back of the flatbed. There is another racing car alongside it, something 92. Is it 892 down at the dip?
I think it's 482, Adrenaline Motorsport 330i, I think.